Okay, it looks like I am live here. Let me check. Let me see what's happening on the YouTube side. Oh yeah, I think I'm here. I should be here. There I am, and there you are. Let's see. What can I do here? Oh, this is great. Everybody who is always a moderator on the YouTube side of things is still a moderator. I dig it. I like it. I like where we are. Thanks for being patient. I'm uh, I'm working with StreamYard tonight because I want to take some calls and I want to get you the old audience here involved. Let me make a little adjustment over here. Hold on. There we go. The seams of reality are creeping in. You know, we got this new throne for Jasper tonight, and I hope he shows up so he can take his place on the throne. A lot of people have remarked that they're bummed out because Jasper isn't a part of the daily show here, right? Or the hell is that? The Sunday night show. I mean, he is, but you can't see him, right? So we got this little throne, and hopefully he'll show up and take his place amongst his true spot in the internets. So, how is everybody? How are you doing? The world is getting is the world weird enough yet? I think we're going to have our head stuck in a microwave oven when Pluto moves into Aquarius, where you can feel the weird coming on, right? I mean, the weird is coming on. Like everything that's happening with these weather balloons, supposed weather balloons, and what's happening with these fighter jets that are being scrambled. You know, there's this airspace over Michigan and Canada that apparently NORAD put on alert. So there's a lot of really weird shit going on. A lot of really weird shit. And it feels appropriate as we begin to edge up towards Pluto's arrival into Aquarius. I don't want to get too deep into the high strange tonight because I wanted to bring on the kind of the love vibe tonight. So in the background, of course, we have a little Cupid action, a little Eros action hanging out. We got 137 people here, and it's always nice. You know, the one thing about StreamYard, and I've used StreamYard before, that I like and I don't like, and I suppose I can kind of X the chat out if I need to, right? I could do that if I wanted to. And but the thing with StreamYard in the chat is that it's kind of ubiquitous, right? It's like it's always there. And one of the things that I used to do with the show is I used to really get caught up in chat a lot during during the actual broadcast of the show. And I found that was pretty distracting because I was having conversations with people. Sometimes they were kind of funny and timely, and other times they weren't so timely, right? And I get kind of caught up at times in debate, with the whole chat experience. And I don't think that's always. I mean, sometimes it can be entertaining, but I don't think it's always really good for chat or me. So it'll be interesting to see how I cruise around here with chat tonight. We have the mods; they're still in action, and I'm glad you're here tonight, Tom and Steve and Ryan and whoever else has a wrench next to their name. Let me just see who is here tonight. All right, we got. I'm gonna go all the way to the top of the chat. Gaia Travelogue, looking forward to this theme. Yes. Well, we're going to need your participation tonight. It is an Aquarian moment. Am I right? And you are the other part of the Aquarian equation and the Aquarian occasion as well. So I'm going to need some audience participation tonight. And I think how this happens is I put a little link inside of the StreamYard chat, and then I guess some of you will show up. And if you have a question about a relationship, your chart, as it relates specifically to relationships, we're going to go through it tonight. And I'll try to do maybe, I don't know, about 10 people. I think 10 is a good number. We'll try to do about 10 people. And if you're working on a relationship, well, maybe we can do a little synastry chart here. Although it sounds so like strange. When you talk about astrology and the astrology of you and another person, it's called synastry. A little sinister sounding. Anyway, we're going to do this tonight. We've got the chart of the moment. That's ahead of us because I got to get warmed up a little bit. We'll take a look at some Aquarian charts tonight. Kind of an interesting day for birthdays that are born under the sign of Aquarius. And it's been a real fascinating journey. I've been doing these stars of the day on my daily show. Well, it's not really daily. It's Tuesday through Friday, so 4 days a week. And showing who is, representative of Aquarius. It's such a really interesting group and an interesting bunch. And yet they have some very interconnected common themes like rebellion. And even last Friday, when we looked at Gary McKinnon's chart, who is this kind of, on the spectrum savant who broke into the back door of the Pentagon and the Department of Defense and found a bunch of names for ships that did not exist, at least not in the water, right? There were not ships that we know of that were commissioned to float on the terrestrial seas. So Gary McKinnon essentially found a few other things that said, hey, look, these guys have ships or craft that are off planet and they have names like the USS Enterprise, like in Star Trek. Although I don't think that was one of the names. That would have been too weird, right? And then they tried to extradite him. It was a really big deal. And he's made kind of a public, bit of a public voice. He's been a bit of a public voice for how there's been a major operation to obscure extremely powerful and super high technologies, very advanced technologies from us, which would be game changers. We know that, right? So he's an Aquarian, and he did something rebellious. He went into the back door of the United States military and found what appears to be some very intriguing information, to say the least, about what we have in terms of, well, Space Force, right? Trump called it Space Force. And were they really developing Space Force, or was Space Force already there? And Gary McKinnon just kind of opened the back door. Anyway, a lot of really interesting characters that are born under the sign of Aquarius. And it's funny, I got a DM from Twitter from somebody said, I've been listening to your daily stream, and you seem to have changed a bit about Aquarius because you're so positive about them now. Look, I don't hate any sign, right? I don't have an issue with any sign. Trust me. All the signs are equally interesting and fascinating in their own degree. If anything, I think my own sign is probably the least interesting. And that's the truth. I mean, I think Virgo is pretty misunderstood. But I wouldn't say, oh my God, this is a really interesting sign. In some ways it kind of is. But honestly, I think and by the way, this is not to disparage any fellow Virgoans out there, right? But I think that there are on the surface 11 other signs that could be much more interesting than my own. And that's true. I do believe that. However, of course, we'll find anomalies inside of every sign and outliers and then people that really are archetypes of the sign. The thing about Aquarius is that we do see a lot of archetypes with Aquarius. It's kind of tonight. I got two of them teed up and ready to go. I mean, I don't have their charts where I've actually cast their charts, but we'll go through the list and they're on AstroDienst and they're pretty good rodent ratings. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Specifically, it's uh, uh, Charles Darwin and Mr. Oh fuck, I'm having a senior moment now. I'm having a senior moment. It's oh, let me just go there. Let's just go there. And I always do this with this guy. There's some names they're just there's some names that I always have to kind of scramble with. And this is one of those names. So let me go back here. Tomorrow's Peter Tork's birthday. Jerry Springer as well. All right. So we have Charles Darwin, of course, Mr. Theory of Evolution. And then we have Ray Kurzweil. For some reason, I always blank out on Ray Kurzweil's name. Isn't that weird? There's a couple of names that I blank out on, and Kurzweil is one of them. And we'll get into them in a little bit. So, yeah, there's some very interesting birthdays on the 12th. We have Ray Kurzweil, of course, Charles Darwin. They're kind of bookends. They're very strange time twin bookends. Ray Manzarek, who produced, he produced the band X, but he was also, of course, the keyboard and bass player, played bass with his pedals. In the Doors, the famous Ray Manzarek, or Ray Manzarek, however you want to say his name. Who else do we have today that's kind of interesting? Let's see. Mm-mm-mm. Joe Alioto, who I spoke to on the phone a long time ago when I was doing intern work at a magazine in San Francisco. Joe Alioto, of course, the famous mayor of San Francisco, who was convicted of some very strange charges that were related to the mafia, and was pretty much single-handedly responsible for the bankruptcy of Look magazine when they did a big story on him. And that story was done by Tucker Carlson's father, by the way. Ehud Barak, who was the prime minister of Israel. Darren Aronofsky, who's a very interesting filmmaker, and he did the movie The Fountain, Black Swan. Really interesting guy. But he's got a bit of an alien vibe about his chart, and his movies certainly are really otherworldly. Really, he's got an interesting chart too. Now I don't think do they have the C rating. So he's an Aries rising based on the time that they've given him. And he was married to Rachel Weitz, who was also in The Fountain. She's a Pisces, by the way. Very interesting director, another Aquarian. So it's his birthday on the 12th. And who else? Oh, Judy Blume, the famous author. It's her birthday today. We'll get into some more of these, particularly with Darwin and Kurzweil. Kurzweil and Darwin, they're really interesting time twins. The theory of evolution and then the theory of what we could call trans evolution, right? Trans evolution, where we evolve into these strange hybrid species. The restless genius, also known as Edison's rightful heir. We'll get more into him. Kurzweil is kind of an interesting guy. I mean, he's really into diet, taking care of the body. He's pretty. He was pretty advanced with some of his theories on health and the body, and then he goes really deeply into transhumanism. Of course, he is the father of what's known as the singularity. So we'll get into his chart a little bit tonight. We'll get into the chart of the moment. But the whole idea later on is when I fire this thing up, you get to be a part of the show. All right, who else do we have? Kabuki Theater, train derailment, was a huge ecological disaster. Crickets. Union was threatening strike and busted by Biden. Safety issues were a big concern of the unions. Let's go, Brandon. Well, I mean, they basically strong-armed the unions, not just one union, but a number of the unions that are part of the and those are groups, by the way. The unions are groups. Unions fall under the rubric of Aquarius. They're brotherhoods, right? I mean, brotherhood, local, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah. And we have the Sun-Saturn square tonight. We're seeing kind of the implications. It's going to be very interesting as Saturn and the Sun, or the Sun moves closer to Saturn over the next couple of days. We'll get into that with the chart of the moment. Let's see what we have. In Kabuki Theater, also known as Bo, love is a drug. It is, and it needs a score. Pete Stack, wonder if the 4 balloons are a cover story. There's so much misdirection and cloak and dagger and layers and levels, and we haven't even really seen anything yet. Wait till they unleash again. This is all Aquarian territory now, so this is all astrology. I'm not dragging my heels and having a non-astrological conversation here. But wait till they unleash the deep fakes. Oh man. I mean, you talk about distraction, cover, confusion. The rabbit holes are going to get really bizarre. Like really bizarre. Like it's like we're getting ready to push off into a realm where there's going to be so much distraction and so much confusion and so much finger pointing. It's going to be like friendly fire. It's what it's going to be like. I mean, that's the image that I have in my head, is friendly fire, where you people are so twisted and have lost the compass for their true north, because their trusted sources of information aren't so trusted anymore. That's going to be a really big deal. And this whole movement towards digging out the truth, and the people with the tinfoil hats who had been on the bottom of the pyramid kind of rising to the top because they've been on the case, they're going to make it really, really difficult for people to dwell in that world. So being able to ferret through things and even things that may not be in the present, they might be in the past. It could be really, really easy to drum up things that look like they were here for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. And all of a sudden, we're like, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. Right, here's something that is part of our story, that has been part of our story. And I know that there are people that have fallen off the Tartarian train because of that. And I'm not even really thinking or speaking to that phenomenon. But it's going to be really, really hard. I think you'll probably have a better sense or better chance about understanding the future by trying to unlock the past. Because what's happening in the present as it relates to the future in information and data is going to get really confusing. Really, really confusing. Let's see. Hey, there's my man, Michael. What's going on, brother Mike? Where's your wrench? You don't have a wrench in here. I don't see the wrench. JJ's here. Hi, JJ. Sony. What's going on, Sony? The classy one. All right, who else do we have? Ryan. Does Ryan have a wrench? Oh, you know what? You do. I just can't see it. Okay, this is something I have to remind myself. My view of you in the StreamYard chat is different than my view of you in the online YouTube chat. I just have to remember that. Karen McQuaid, what's happening, Karen? She's here. Sandra Jack Shaw, SJS, is giving us a good laugh. Long heads up. Level a bold competitor to the Super Bowl. You know what? I think that this is, the Super Bowl could be interesting. I've lost all faith in professional sports. You know why? Because gambling has made its way into pro sports at such a high level. So now we have three things going on that can affect the outcome of the game. We have the meta meaning, which is, of course, the event that points to where things are headed or where things are going. And we could go back to any number of Super Bowls and peel that away. Of course, we have the rituals with the Super Bowl halftime show and everything that goes along with that. And that's the above ground rituals. I've heard, and this is the word on the street. I've heard that the actual rituals are taking place either below the stadium or near the stadium that they're happening at, right? So we have that whole world. So we have the symbolic representation of the Super Bowl and the winners, by the way. Then we have the narrative that exists for the NFL because the NFL has a narrative and a stake in the game. And then we have the betting stake in the game because these you know online betting services are finely tuned, man. They are so finely tuned. They know where they can push a line. They could push a line within 1.5 to probably 4 points. I seriously doubt that we'll see blowouts in the Super Bowl ever again. Seriously doubt that we'll see blowouts in the Super Bowl. In fact, most of the last Super Bowls have been very close. Why? They want to push the line. They want to push the line. Now, Philadelphia has a history of blowing teams out early in the first half. So if the game is going to be a blowout, it might happen within the first quarter and a half of the game. But that doesn't mean that it won't be a high scoring game. It could still be a very high scoring game and still be a very close game. So the whole betting thing has become massive. And of course, that's extremely technological. And they're using a lot of these Aquarian technologies in order to really, in real time, I have no doubt that somebody somewhere is in charge of a centralized cartel that's related to whatever's going on, gambling, connected to the league, and even connected to the referees so that they can get calls. Oh man, the light is really bright in my left eye tonight. Getting a little glare. Anyway, they can get the calls to make the game really close. Either close the spread, widen the spread, whatever it is. All right, who else do we have here? This is my favorite one. K. Lieblaschutz. K. Lieblaschutz. I think I got it. What's happening? We got a Ryan sighting, who I talked about earlier. What's going on, Ryan? Fantastic. CC Jones, Liddy Lewis here. There she is, the lovely and talented one. Dr. Joan S. She's here with us tonight, as always. Susie Gemini. What's going on, Susie? Susie Q. Let's see. Pen Greedy. Greetings, Pen Greedy. Let's see. K went to Candace and then added a hyphen. The chat is a moving river. Secret Law 2007. Hello, Secret Law. What's going on? What's happening? Who else is here? Let's see. Artist Seer, good to be here on this spiritual journey in Guatemala. Miri sending hugs and love to everyone. Beautiful. I'd like to go to Guatemala. I've never been to Guatemala. The furthest south I've been is Merida. Eileen, hey, Eileen Kepper. Is it actually possible for everyone to play? Oh, yeah. I gave up watching football. Eileen, you haven't been around for a while. It's good to see you, though. Yeah, I gave up watching football. It was just getting too mediated. I couldn't stand the mediation, and a lot of the wokey woke shit in pro sports drove me away. What's going on, Crow? La HK. Yes, your rowdy friends are good and rowdy. Maybe he starts when it ends. No, I don't think so. I got no investment in the Super Bowl. Glemma Spank. Hi, Glemma. You guys are still a little bit behind. I just had to get things going here. I had to deal with this new system. We'll see how that goes. Guy Travelog, what's happening? Good to see you. We got a happy birthday for Eileen. Happy birthday, Eileen. All you Aquarians out there. Isn't you just waiting for something to finish? No freight train. I was just working on the familiarity with the new system. Lynette Jardine. Hi, Lynette. Good to see you. Carissa Demke. Hi, Carissa. Let's see. Who else do we have? You guys been keeping each other company. Let me get up to present time. Joe Law's here. Is St. Valentine's Day a made up holiday? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But you can still take advantage of it. Whimsical Farm Girl, she's here. Aren't all holidays made up? Touche, Carissa. Touche. Miss Nikki. Good to see you, Miss Nikki. Who else do we have? Rockford Files was genius. Best episode, white on white and nearly perfect. Yeah, big Rockford Files fan. Big Rockford Files. Jim Garner. Let's see. Who else do we have? Jan Schiavino. What's happening, Jan? Good to see you. All right. Jelena. Hey, Jelena. I love the generic magenta. The generic magenta icon. I like it. Mary Stevens. Oh, we got another 922er. George Roby. MNLR. Meowgical Catacorn. Let's see. Do we have everybody? Rizzy Beth. Hi, Rizzy Beth. Got a good group here tonight. Gucci to Goats. There's Jake, our resident celebrity. Let's see. Neo, is that Mars and Cupid? Yes, it is. It is. Apollo and Eros. Absolutely. Perfect timing. Too bad the Bears aren't Super Bowling it. Oh, man. The Bears. It's been a while. It's been a while since Iron Mike. Iron Mike. And, I really like Jim McMahon. He was an interesting character. I think he was a Leo, if I'm not mistaken. August 22nd. McMahon was such a character. Originally from the same town that I was from, San Jose, California. Magic Cat in the house. Hey, it's Nish. Man, we got an all-star cast tonight. Wow. How cool is that? All right, why don't we get into some astrology? Let's look at where everything is. Everything is in the galaxy. The galaxy. Where's my chart? There we go. Let's do a little screen share here. All right. Present. Screen share. Screen share is easiest with 2 monitors. Scarish. Okay, well, let's do it. I got a good computer. I got 1 monitor. Open system preferences. Okay. Let's do that. Later. Hold on. Yeah, this is all virgin territory here, right? Okay. Allow apps below to record the contents of your screen while using other apps. Okay. I think we got it. Let's do the chart of the moment here. Chrome tab. No, not Chrome tab. Window right there. There we go. All right, look at that. Boom. We got it. And I still have my little window. So this is it. This is what the heavens theoretically look like. Now we do have Leo rising as we started tonight's show about 30 minutes ago, roughly 33 minutes ago. And Leo is always good when it comes to love. Leo, the ruler of the heart, where the kingdom of heaven dwells within, right? Theoretically. Although the Chinese would differ. They would say, no, liver. So in the West, we're going to go with the heart for tonight in the show. So we're opening the show tonight with Leo rising, which means that we have some love and passion and humor and fun. And we'll endeavor to have some of those things tonight. Definitely look at some humor and love as we open the love lines, the astro love lines, and a few. This is the big mover and shaker here. So we have the sun at 24 Aquarius, creeping and getting close to Saturn at 27. So by the time Wednesday rolls around, we're going to have a Sun Saturn conjunction. And, since we've had Saturn in Aquarius, we've had 3 Sun Saturn conjunctions. If I'd done my research prior to the show, instead of watching some video clips about the cartels in Mexico, I'd probably be able to tell you what those 2 other conjunctions were about. But since I didn't, I'm just going to have to go into what I think it will be about in this go round. So by the time we get here into the Sun Saturn conjunction, which will be 2 days from now, roughly, let's call it 2 and an outlier with 3. We're really into Valentines territory, correct? And we're into the 3rd decan, which puts it into the Libran decan. So we're not just talking about the effects of Aquarius and social structures, which has really been dominated by Saturn in Aquarius. We're also talking about the relationship of the individual, because it's in the 3rd decan, the relationship of the individual to these social structures. Now, by the time we get into Wednesday, Thursday, of course, the moon will have moved. It'll be in Sagittarius. So some of the tension that we've experienced over the last 24 hours, and even now as the sun begins to separate a little bit from the moon and begins to separate a little bit from Uranus, that will slightly abate a bit. And there'll be kind of a better sense of, I wouldn't want to use the word adventure. I think every day is an adventure now in having to understand and learn how to get through the times we're in. It's an adventure. And sometimes it's an absolute misadventure but there seems to be a bit more buoyancy in terms of our ability to deal with things and to look at things in a way that's going to be a lot more humorous than, say, over the last 24 to 48 hours. So the sun separates a little bit. The moon will catch up, right? The moon will catch up, and we're getting a little bit more intensity before it moves into Sagittarius. Now, Uranus, sun's moving away, right? But the moon will catch up. So by the time we cruise into tomorrow night, we get into that moon sun square and moon Saturn square fixed sign, that could be pretty intense. That could be pretty intense. But there's a saying, and I know it's a cliched one, it's always darkest before the dawn. And the moon in Sagittarius brings us a little more respite come Tuesday. So we're coming through how I could see this, and this does relate to this whole idea of Valentine's Day and being in a relationship or being in or part of a group that has maybe more connections to relationships than you do. Let's say, for instance, over the next few days, you are connected with some friends, and those friends have marriages or LTRs, right? And then that moon comes in Scorpio, and you're one of those people that don't. I mean, that to me would be an example of having to deal with this kind of intensity, right? And if you're willing to, and I think this is kind of where a lot of people are right now. If you're willing to just go it alone, right? You're like, okay, I'm just going to go alone. I don't really feel like I need a relationship now. I'm okay with myself. And in fact, a lot of the qualified candidates are people that I thought were contenders after they took the jibber jab. They're now pretenders, right? So there's been a lot of people having to readjust or reevaluate what relationship is for them and what's on the table. And what's also really strange is we're moving into more of this collective Aquarian energy. So there's a lot less of an emphasis that's going to be based on the things that are the sort of the nuts and bolts of a relationship. I'll give you an example. There was a time when, through a number of different means, and I do believe that we still have the ability to not only learn and grow through relationship. I think that's a really under utilized tool of growth. Um, but what's happened is that we have a lot of these cultural uh, stories, mythologies, and even justifications as to why people are in a relationship together. So here in the West, we come out of the romantic tradition, and the romantic tradition has a lot to do with the like the poets of the court, right? The courtiers, when the men went off to go fight in the Crusades, uh, the chivalrous men of the kingdoms of Europe went off to fight in the Crusades. They left behind the poets, right? They left behind the eunuchs. They left behind the storytellers, and so this is where this whole tradition of the chanson de geste, right, which is related to the Song of Roland, which is where that term comes from, comes into play. It's just the whole idea of courtly love, and it's a theme that has it started off with nobility because when you look at the whole idea of courtly love, it didn't really exist for the quote unquote serfs, the peasants. They didn't really have courtly love in the same way that it was elevated, inside of the palace walls. I mean, that's a tradition that seeped down to the rest of humanity in the West. We're just talking about the West now. And so that tradition moved forward. And you have writers like Shakespeare, and then you have Chaucer, and then you have Boccaccio. These are all, kind of ribald, but very interesting authors when it comes to talking about things like love and courtship. And then you get into uh, the uh, the playwrights of the Restoration, and people like Dryden, and you get into the whole Love's Labor's Lost and those kinds of picaresque sort of comedy of errors about love. It's still love, right? And they get into things like wit, the whole idea of wit and how wit can elevate an individual's sense perception with the world, right? So these are all coming out of that tradition in the West. So that's part of our story. It's a trickle down effect that eventually makes its way into the plebes, for lack of a better term, and then those stories become much more commonplace, or they become part of the common thread of people that are outside of the noble class, right? Outside of the nobility, and you have, the beginnings of paperbacks and stories about love, especially affairs, unrequited love, Madame Bovary. These are all very important pieces of literature that have the language of love. They're very important, right? And they bring with us the myth of romantic love. So that's a big part of our story. Then we have the other part of our story, which is coming out of that other part of our history. Again, this is all the West. The other part of our history, which is from the bottom up, and people look at relationship in the same way that they look at like a business partnership. You had a wife and you got a couple of cows as a dowry with your wife. And then if you had land, the first thing you needed to do was make as many kids as possible so that they could help you. They could help you on the land. And this is the antithetical equation for romantic love, but yet it's a part of who we are, right? It's a part of our story. So those two themes are interwoven in our historical narrative in the West. So if we just move all that stuff forward, right? We move it all forward and look where we are now, it's a very different landscape, like extremely different landscape. And these ideas, these romantic ideas of romantic love, if you drill down deep enough, they're going to be pushed back on because those are all cultural ideas. And those are cultural ideas that belong to a certain part of our culture, i.e., the West, colonialism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, those are all just fairy tales. What about the rest of us who haven't had the privilege of having the ability to have those kinds of um, fairy tale romances, right? I mean, so that part of that begins to kind of creep in to where we are. And the whole idea of romance, and to some extent, even the restoration comedies, is that there were people who had values and ideals that were related to this idea of love. There was a thing called chivalry, and men were really men, and women were really women. Of course, there were always, you know, kinks and perverts throughout any part of our historical legacy. That stuff has always been there. But now it's gotten to an entirely another level, right? Like people that have OnlyFans pages, and if you have one, I'm not here to disparage you, but there's a lot less emphasis on this idea of courtly love or romantic love. And through the and I can even tell you right now, right, as we have gone through Pluto and Capricorn, and I've been thinking about this, as we've gone through Pluto and Capricorn, everything has changed. And love and relationships have become transactions and really about power in a lot of ways. And I can only imagine what it's like to be a young person who's in their 20s. And I think this might have been more the case 6 or 7 years ago when we were dealing on this level with the millennials a bit more because I think Gen Z has a bit of a different set of morals. I'll just say that. I think Gen Z has a different set of morals. I had a great connection with Dr. Longo on Friday, and I actually I'm not going to divulge too much here, but I did a reading for Dr. Longo's girlfriend, and I got to tell you, um, that connection gave me some hope for the future. Right, that connection gave me some hope for the future because number one, they were in a relationship. Number two, their values were in accordance with one another, which is really important for a relationship. And number three, they had a dream, met a destination. And I thought to myself, this is really cool, right? But taking that out of the equation, if you go back and we saw the whole swipe right culture, which was a complete and absolute annihilator of relationship and this idea of both functional and romantic love. I've got Venus and the moon in Libra, Mercury in Libra. I think you can have both. I think you can have somebody in your life that you have great commonality and great chemistry with, and also your relationship can become a working relationship because those are the best relationships as far as I can discern from my experience. When two people can actually work together and accomplish things together, that's great. That's how it's supposed to be. Instead of people having a turf war to find out, why they're who's gonna drive the car. And I've been there. I've been in those turf wars. Who's going to drive the car? So we go back and we look at Pluto in Capricorn, and I feel like it really changed the landscape for relationship. Everything became transactional. Everything, and then you had things like filters on Instagram and boob jobs and butt jobs and twerking, and it was the everything was for sale, and it's been for sale in Pluto and Capricorn, but that's coming to an end now, right? That is coming to an end. And those kinds of transactions are going to look very different when Pluto is in Aquarius. Because Uranus eventually kills Kronos, right? Uranus kills time. And there's a new time, and we're getting ready. We're coming right up to the approach of that new time. Now, does that mean we're all going to find our soulmates and twin flames when Pluto's in Aquarius? The answer to that is no, because we have different challenges with Pluto in Aquarius, different types of partnerships, different types of love, different types of birthing, or different types of birth rate. These are all going to be, I think, pretty self-evident the more we move into Pluto and Aquarius, which is really the uncharted territory in a lot of ways. It's going to be very, very interesting. But I feel better ultimately about where relationships are headed in general under Pluto and Aquarius than I did in Pluto and Capricorn. Everything became transactional. Everything, including relationships. And what we know about Pluto and Aquarius is that we are in the process of inversion. So if we've seen these relationships where the natural order of things has been interrupted, and it really has with Pluto and Capricorn. Really, if you're a 20-year-old girl, and I'll use the word girl, 4 years ago, if you're a 20-year-old girl 4 years ago, you're in college, and you're on a dating app, and here's some dude who's willing to pay for you to fly to Miami for the weekend. And he's probably in his mid 30s. You're 20. He's made a shit ton of money in, I don't know, derivatives, Silicon Valley, Wall Street, who knows, but can afford to fly. The Dave Portnoy model. This is what we're talking about. And flies you out. You're there for a weekend. And you're like, oh my God, look at this. I can stay at this great hotel. He picked me up in this really killer, brand new convertible Corvette, or whatever moves the needle. Went to all these great restaurants. It was fantastic. He wants to do it again, right? Meanwhile, he's got about 6 other girls from the dating app on speed dial, but that's another thing altogether. So, the 18, 19-year-old young man doesn't stand a chance in that world. He just doesn't stand a chance. And, there are enough TikTok videos out there that have demonstrated that, going back, 4 or 5 years, where you have these young women coming on there and say, hey, look, why should I go this path when I go this path? And, after, 4 years of doing this, look at all the things that I have. So Pluto and Capricorn upset the balance of things in that realm. Pluto in Aquarius, I think, will reset some of it. It'll have its own challenges. But, one of the things that we think of with Pluto and Aquarius is the move towards the collective. And yes, it's going to happen. It's already happening. But what we know about Aquarius is the inversion. And I'm going to go back to the show that I did on the French Revolution when Pluto was in Aquarius, right? I mean, Pluto was in Aquarius during the French Revolution. And you had 2 out of the 3 main figureheads of the French Revolution born under Pluto and Sagittarius, right? So they were that era's version of Gen Z. But they had, if I'm not mistaken, Neptune and Leo in their chart. Memory serves me. This group has Neptune and Aquarius. Very different. Very, very, very different. Oh, look who's here. Come get your throne, man. Your throne's waiting for you. Come on. Come over here. Come on. We're just talking about royalty. Come on. Come on. So we're working on bringing a new cat into the environment. And he's always looking around now. Where's that new cat? You weren't really happy about that new cat today. She was less happy about you. Come on up here. Come on. Come on. Come on. We got this throne just for you. You playing hard yet? It's right here. Look. Come on. Come on. Hold on a second. Come on. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Oh. See, that way, how do you like your new throne? That's for you. That's for you. It's his first time on the new throne, by the way. At least officially. You like it? You don't like it? Oh, you like this spot over here better? Jasper, the Astro Cat's arrived. Yeah. People have been waiting for you. Well, why don't you check out your throne, man? That way they can see you. Now, you want to go to the part of the couch where there is no throne. All right. It's up to you. You can go over there if you want. I'll leave it up to you. Anyway, getting back to Gen Z and love, right? I think it's going to be very different for them. And I just keep coming back to this whole idea that this kind of world that they've got cooked up, right? The inversion world, the upside down. It's going to get upside down for even the architects of the upside down. So I would say, by and large, I'm actually more optimistic about the potential and the power of relationship than I have been over the last, say, 10 years. We'll just say the last decade. And it's because Pluto, again, I'll just repeat, Pluto and Capricorn brought a transactional value to everything we did. Everything we did. And that's going to end with Pluto and Aquarius. That transactional value is going to end. And what happens with the best relationships? What are the best relationships all have in common? People like each other, and they have the ability to be friends, right? To be friends and then take their friendship and the intimacy with their friendship into other areas of their life. And what does Aquarius stand for? It stands for friends, right? Friends and groups and organizations. It's, Aquarius is the energy of agape in a lot of ways. So we see Pluto here, in the final degrees as it moves into the ingress, sort of demonstrating where we've been over since the Pluto ingress into Capricorn. I mean, just think about how it started. It started off with the destruction of security. It started off with the housing crisis. I mean, my God, it just, opposite sign, Cancer, boom, it blew all that out. How many relationships did Pluto and Capricorn blow apart due to the housing crisis? More than you think, or you might know. Some of you might have your own experience around that. Are you going to settle in on the crown? There you go. It has to be your move, doesn't it? Not mine. Your move. You're a Taurus. I get it. You like it now, don't you? Oh yeah. There you go. You can knead it and everything. There you go. That works for you. King Jasper. All right. Speaking of relationship, what do we have here? We've got Venus and Pisces. Does that make sense to you guys? Does that make sense? Right? Because we went from this atomization and everything became transactional with Pluto in Capricorn. And now we're moving into a different territory. And it feels like we're looking for allies. That's the other part with Aquarius is we're looking for allies. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. How about one more? Can I do one more? Can I do one more? Sometimes it's only one zoom. Oh yeah, look at that. There's Venus. Venus conjunct Neptune coming up. We're going to have a Venus Neptune conjunction on Valentine's Day. Doesn't that sound romantic? I think that sounds positively romantic. Venus Neptune conjunction. There is something, there's a part of me, the 29 Virgo, Scorpio rising part of me, that kind of looks at the whole idea of romantic love, sort of more, how do I say this? Functionally, right? I look at it as a functional kind of experience in general. But there's another part of me that understands this, right? Understands this whole idea of the elevation of love, right? The elevation of what love can be. And we don't have enough of that. We've come through, and this goes into this whole idea of Blake, right? And innocence and experience and imagination. And we went through that very innocent period where we were sold this idea of romantic and courtly love, in the intersection between that and having a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house and a 2-car garage. And that was the basis and the foundation of how we would mate and apply these principles of relationship. And then what happened is we kind of blew through that, right? We went through a kind of a deep, deep, deep trough of experience. And I can tell you right now, kids these days have had more access to porn than any other generation prior, right? The Gen Z has grown up with the internet from day one. Even the millennials didn't have internet when they were born. The first millennials start to kind of show up around 83. They really come on in 1985. They didn't have the internet. Gen Z has the internet. Like the internet is up and running from really in a big way from about 1995, 1996 on. And that's when they show up. So they've had more access to online material than any other generation. And don't think that they're not aware of the darker or seamier sides of the human experience, because they are, right? That's the nature of being human. That said, with Pluto and Sagittarius, which can be pretty moral. I could see them turning away from. And the other thing too, right, is that all this stuff really becomes much more. I don't want to use the word juicy, but it becomes much more sought after when there is a taboo associated with it, right? Like when I was a kid, if you found, you know, somebody's Playboy, like, the kid across the street and the father had a Playboy or something, you found that, man, that was a big deal. It was a really, really, really big deal. And at a certain point, when all that stuff becomes ubiquitous, and it's really ubiquitous now in a lot of ways, and in some ways, in some very damaging, um, very, very damaging versions of it. At some point, people will just turn away from it. They're like, yeah, so what? Right? So what? And I think that's where this generation is beginning to go. Now, I know that some millennials can also be very conservative in a lot of ways with how they partner and very, very serious about their partnership efforts and groups together. So I feel like we're going to see a sea change here. It's inevitable, right? We're going to move from the tawdry and seamy world of experience into a realm of imagination. And I feel like this is across the board for all of us, even when the fake alien invasion comes. Trust me. Let me make this a little bit bigger. And it's going to happen in a way where people are informed. It's one thing to believe in a fairy tale or to believe in a courtly romantic novel, to believe in a Danielle Steele novel. I mean, people were, indoctrinated into those kinds of mythologies. But it's another for when people have gone through this process that we've gone through and having this kind of expurgation of our internal contents externalized into the world. Everything that's connected to our shadow and connected to um, the kind of the dark parts of who we are has been externalized. It's all out there. It's not that hard to find. So what are the steps? There's only two steps, and maybe they could be part of a parallel world. One is the normalization of the darkness. And we see that now. I mean, that's part of what's happening is the normalization of the darkness. And I think Pluto in Aquarius could play a role in some of that. But the other side of that is the rejection and the rebellion of the morals and the mores of the world that's gone before the time of this generation now that is coming of age. I think that's a really important factor here. This is just in terms where everything is going in general, right? That's my sense. The other thing, and this is going to be a bigger part of the discussion as we move through these times we're in, is that not everybody is going to be looking for the same thing in the same person. And once they find that person based on some very powerful and disturbing data that's coming back to us, that if you have found somebody who has, let's say, for lack of a better term here, virgin blood, that you're going to be more interested in that person than somebody whose gene code has been, how shall we say, challenged. Right? That plays a role here. Don't underestimate that. That plays a role. So what does that mean? That means that people are going to be opting for monogamy more than they have in the past. But these are people that are conscious and aware, and they understand what's going on. So monogamy will be a part of the story. This is, and so when you have monogamy, what do you have? You have people choosing to be together, and some of it is out of the consequences of running across somebody who may have compromised um, their genetics, right? That's a big deal. So inherent in that is this idea that you aren't going to be on the market as much because once you find somebody and they're being true to you and you're being true to them, then guess what? Why do we have to look any further? We know the consequences, we know the risks, and inherently that makes things quite interesting because now there's a limit, right? There's a limitation. Not everybody or everything is open for business. And this will color the nature of relationships moving forward. And people who have chosen to not partake of the genetic therapy, they'll be in demand. They will be in demand. So this is all really interesting territory. Of course, we're dealing with the ingress of Pluto into Aquarius. In the immediate, we got a Venus conjunction to Neptune on Tuesday night, Tuesday and Wednesday, kind of blissed out. By that point in time, they're separating from Mars. Yeah, there's a little bit of tension, but not as much. Right. By that time, Venus and Neptune will be about 23 degrees. Maybe Mars will be at what, 14, 15. So it's a wide orb in that square. This is a little bit of tension, but not as much as if Mars was much closer into the orb of that square. Now we will have this moon coming in here 2 nights from now and squaring off against Venus. Neptune, I don't know. Could be worse. It could be worse. I mean, I feel like there's a time where people need to let their hair down a little bit and have some fun and enjoy themselves. In the moon in Sagittarius, it's almost a given that that's probably going to happen, right? I mean, it's almost a given that that's going to happen. So, have a second or third glass of champagne. Yeah, I mean, just make sure that you're not in a place where you're going to have to drive and pay the consequences for that. But anything worth doing is worth overdoing with Sagittarius. So even though it's the moon will be squaring 2 days from now, big deal, big deal. We'll get into a moon Mars opposition also 2 days from now. So there could be some passion. There can be some very forward approaches to people with that moon Mars opposition. It's an interesting Tuesday, Wednesday, an interesting Valentine's Day approach. Merging, passion, a little bit of tension, and allowing your emotions to come to the surface. Oh, do you remember last week when you told me you loved me? Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh, you were so sweet. You were so sweet. Anyway, that's kind of the energy that we're looking at. And by and large, I think this whole quote unquote made up holiday or whatever it is, Valentine's Day, actually could be pretty cool, pretty fun. And if you're in a relationship, it could be a little romantic. Don't be afraid to be a little romantic. Don't be like pragmatic. Oh, gee, happy Valentine's Day, dear. Take your dear out. Take your dear out for a little bit of a thing. Let's talk about the Sun Saturn conjunction. This conjunction is interesting. It's an interesting conjunction because the Sun is the individual, right? And Saturn is hierarchies. Saturn is authority. So we have the Sun in the final degrees, really, of Aquarius. We get into 27 degrees, and that energy is all over the place. I think it's a vibe of general unrest, really. But the other side of this, too, is I think people desperately want to assert their own authority. That's my sense with the Sun Saturn conjunction. Like we know enough, we understand enough. We're adults, right? To me, this is like the teenage rebel sitting down and having a conversation with the older brother or the father figure. It's James Dean and Rock Hudson in Giant. James Dean is the son, and Rock Hudson Saturn, the older brother. This is kind of where we're headed here. And on an individual level, I think you need to take accountability for what you want in your life. This is, I mean, we keep talking about this, but this is the energy here this week. You got to take responsibility and accountability for what you want, the world you want. And if it's a part or away from the dominant paradigm, then you need to take responsibility for that. Meanwhile, as people want to take more responsibility for that, of course, the government is more than willing to sort out your responsibility for you. Right. So this is a very interesting transit that we have here. And really pay attention over the course of the next 4 days just to kind of see what's going on out there, see what's happening in what we call the collective, see what's happening with bureaucrats and what they're ordering up so that the individual falls in line and the individual is in lockstep with the one size fits all narrative of Saturn and Aquarius, which we've seen since its inception, right? So interesting days ahead. Pluto has finally moved. Actually, Mercury's finally moved beyond Pluto now. So I think it was on Friday we had the conjunction of Mercury Pluto, which was very intense. Friday and Saturday were pretty intense. I think if you watch my show here on Friday, I had the recovering vegan on my show, and I think that was a show that was in alignment with the Mercury Pluto conjunction and talking about things like being targeted by vegans who have YouTube channels and Instagram pages and kind of going after her because she's writing a book about the effects of what the plant-based diet had on her body and how when she moved into a carnivore diet, she began to heal. But there's more than that, right? There's a lot more. But it was just indicative of the Mercury Pluto conjunction. So now we've got Mercury moving beyond Pluto. And because we're talking about subjects that were taboo. That when you get into Mercury Pluto conjunctions, you're dipping into the taboo. It's like, ooh, no. No, that's not true. You don't want to raise the ire of these people. Oh, how could that be true? These organic plant-based products are, they're all good for you, right? No, not really. Not really. So now we're here with Mercury on the other side of Pluto, and we're headed into new territory. This is Mercury, embarking on new ideas, new quest for knowledge, and it's behind the sun, right? So this is interesting too, just in general. Saturn, Sun, Mercury, Pluto, right? Saturn says, "Have a plan." Saturn says, "Have a plan," and the Sun says, "Okay, Father, I'll have a plan." And then Mercury is like, "Let me get out the map. Let me get out the map and the blueprint for the plan." And then Pluto is, "Get ready to readjust your plan." Right? That's how this thing works. But it's we got an interesting sort of continuum here, right? Interesting continuum. Stellium in Aquarius with Pluto right on the edge there. All right, what else do we have? Jupiter, Chiron, the Jupiter Chiron conjunction. I like it. I like the Jupiter Chiron conjunction. It's giving people a greater sense of being able to take a risk. Like even on Friday when Giselle came on my show, when she does stuff like that, she comes under fire and people will go after her and they'll hassle her about her relationship with big food, right? So I'm sure maybe some of you have even seen it in your own life, maybe with yourself, maybe with other people, where they've just said, fuck it, you know, I'm going in, I'm taking a risk. We do have a bit of a yod tonight with Chiron and Mars and the moon right here. So by the time we wake up tomorrow, that yacht will be gone. So I'm probably not not going to talk about it very much. All right, I think that's the opening part of the show. Chart of the moment. A bit of a riff on relationship and culture and time, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully you enjoyed it. All right. I don't think you can still see, can you see Jasper over here? He's kind of Jasper. I got to pump you up a little bit. Your throne. You like this throne, don't you? You're into this throne. You just curl up like a little ball inside of there. This is a good purchase, but nobody can see you. So we got this so people can see you. Now you're on your back. All right, let's take a quick look at some of these Aquarians that I was talking about, and then I'm going to bring you guys on, and this should be a fun night. So one of the people I was talking about was Ray Kurzweil, and he and Darwin are complete bookends, total bookends. So funny. I just reflexively go to Zoom to do a screen share, but it's different with StreamYard. I may not use StreamYard all the time, but I am using it for tonight. All right, let's do a screen share in StreamYard again. All right, invite, submission settings, present. All right. Chrome tab, here it is. So this is Ray Kurzweil, his chart. He's a Scorpio rising. He's the father, pretty much the father of AI. Right? We can scroll down here, see his grid. And Kurzweil, one of the things that really, and I've looked at his chart many times before, and one of the things that really set him off on this idea of creating AI. And for Kurzweil, it's all about life extension. It is all about life extension. And he lost his father. And losing his father was a huge, huge deal to Kurzweil. And you can see right at the top of the chart where Saturn, who is the father, right? Saturn's the father. And then there's Pluto here. It's a wide conjunction, but conjunct nonetheless. And Saturn hugging his midheaven. So Kurzweil has always been held in incredibly high regard for his advances in robotics and diet and electronics. He created the Kurzweil synthesizer. He's a really interesting character. And yet it's his desire to somehow, I think he felt guilty in a lot of ways when his father died because he couldn't save him and he couldn't prolong his experience. And that's been a real driver for Ray Kurzweil. And you can see it here with the Saturn Pluto conjunction. Of course, Saturn being the father, and then his son, Aquarian sun, in the fourth house. So he's going to be interested, right? Like even though Saturn and Pluto is a big deal, and Saturn, the authority in its own house, up in the 10th in dignity. It's really Kurzweil's roots. It's his relationship with his family. It's his relationship with his home. It's his relationship with his upbringing that really drives a lot of this, right? And it was the loss and the death of his father that forked him off deeper into the realm of AI and robotics. So sometimes these people have very human stories that we don't, completely understand. We think that all these characters are just pure Doctor Evil, and I don't know, maybe Kurzweil might have a smidge of Doctor Evil in him, but that was not his original intent. And he's done some interesting things, like he made a special synthesizer for Stevie Wonder because Stevie Wonder's blind. Well, we know he's blind. Well, we think he's blind. Interesting video on Stevie Wonder out there. But he went out of his way to create a special synthesizer for Stevie Wonder. And the Kurzweil synthesizer was very highly regarded back in the day. So he has kind of a humanitarian side of him, right? He's not a Yuval Harari kind of character. Whenever you read things about Kurzweil, he's not talking about how humans have to be replaced and they're disposable, and he's not coming from that camp. If anything, Kurzweil is coming from a place of wanting to improve things. Whether they're misguided or not, we'll find out. Right? But that's where he's coming from. And even with Jupiter in Sagittarius, man, this guy gets a lot of money for what he does. When we get into Jupiter, we're getting, especially in Sag, it's all about possibility and expansion, and it's very philosophical. And that's driving a lot in this chart as well. Right? He's getting money for it too with Jupiter in the second house. And that Jupiter is trining Mars and it's trining Saturn, trining Pluto. So he's going to get a lot of resources for his work. Then with Pluto up here, this is actually where the position of where my Pluto is in my chart. It's at the highest point of his chart. And when I really dove into my Pluto and did my best to understand what it meant for me and what it meant for like that position in astrology, one of the things that Pluto does there and plays a role is that it literally looks down on the rest of the chart. And that's like the equivalent of looking down on the rest of the world. Think of this as being the eagle's nest, right? The the upper room, the higher mind. And so with Pluto in this position, people that have Pluto close to the midheaven in the ninth have the innate ability to look down on the world and see the world through a kind of an X-ray lens, and to be able to transform things in a way, depending upon where Pluto is and what sign. And Kurzweil's no difference, right? That's exactly what Kurzweil's doing. It's exactly what he's doing. And I think he also really got into stuff around heart health as well, if I'm not mistaken. He was very into wine, red wine, as an ability to stay healthy. He was one of those early kind of explorers of red wine and the antioxidant capacity of red wine. Kurzweil is an interesting guy. I think he's also a bit of a romantic in some ways, a pragmatic romantic. But I think he sees technology through a lens that might be, adventurous or potentially, driven by that Piscean moon. Although the moon is a bit stressed there, isn't it? I think this is a fascinating chart. Very, very fascinating chart. And for me, when you understand his backstory, especially around the death of his father, you can clearly see what drives him. He even said that the death of his father has driven him to try to understand how we can, uh, you know, extend life expectancy or keep people around longer in a more functional state. He's the opposite of Yuval Harari. Total opposite. Now, I don't know if he's opposite astrologically. What is Harari? Is he I think Harari's a Pisces. I could be wrong. But it's an interesting chart. And, he shares this day with Charles Darwin. And I just think it's so fascinating that they both have this thing going on with evolution and Darwin's version of it, and then Ray Kurzweil's version of evolution as well. There was something else that they shared together, and I did this on my show a few weeks ago when we got into Aquarius, and I just want to go back and what was it? The problem with Darwin's chart is that the time around it isn't great. What was the same aspect that they had? I think their nodes were switched. Darwin has his node in Scorpio, true node in Scorpio, and Kurzweil has his true node in Taurus. And both have Venus in Aries, but that's to be expected. Kurzweil's got the better chart. All right. Let me go back into StreamYard. Where are we? All right. Who wants to jump on the show here? Who wants to do a little love astrology? So the idea is that I'll put your chart together in real time. And if you have questions about a relationship or the relationship part of your chart, let me know. Okay, we'll set it up. Do you guys want a Super Bowl score check? Let's see what we have. I hate it when the Super Bowl's at night, by the way. Up 24-14. What did I say about the Eagles getting up early? 24-14. Jalen Hurts, 2 rushing touchdowns, have Eagles holding the advantage in Super Bowl. Was that 47? Was it 47? I think it's 47. Is that right? Anyway, so all you Chiefs fans out there, get ready because they'll come back in the second half. And this thing will come down to anywhere between 1 to 3 points by the time the game is over. Remember, I said they'd come out early. Let's see. Mahomes, he's only thrown for 89 yards, 1 touchdown. Travis Kelce, 1 touchdown. And how did they get the other touchdown? Must have been a defensive touchdown. Anyway. All right. 24-14. Eagles over Chiefs. Let's see. I'm going to put a link in here. I'm going to figure out how to bring you guys on. All right. Let me see if I can do this. I think it's invite, copy. Okay, I can have up to 10 people on screen at once. All right. So instructions for guests. Let's see what it says here. Oh, that's for the pre-show. All right. I'm going to put the link in chat. And if you guys want to come on, we'll do some relationship stuff. And then I'll put you kind of in a queue here. So if you want to come on board, that means your face is going to be on board, unless, of course, you disable your camera. All right. So I just put the link in there, and let's see who shows up. Let's see who shows up. The link is in there now. So if you want to join the show and you want to, and remember, the theme is about relationships. And if you are interested in even looking at a synastry chart, it's not essential, but it always helps if I have the birth time of the other person. The birth date can work okay with synastry without the time. All right. So I just put that in there. Oh, who do we have? We have Candace. We have Chelsea. Oh, look at they've taken the bait. Look at that, Chelsea. She's all excited. Look at her. All right. All right, we got two people. Why don't we start with Candace? Chelsea, I'll get to you. Okay. All right, let's bring Candace on. Put my headphones on, Candace. How are you?
Good.
All right. You're gonna have to settle down there, or else we're gonna get seasick.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, no problem. How's it going tonight?
It's good. I'm in Minnesota, so it's cold.
Yeah, why you're wearing your little stocking cap there?
Yeah, I have a wood stove that I usually light just because, but we also just wear stocking caps because it's cold.
Right, got it. All right, so I'm trying to figure out how we can do this because some people are very private about their birth info. I
I'm
think
not private.
you're not private.
No.
Okay, all right, I like that. Transparent. Let me get my Astro Deans up here. I haven't done this in a long time. I used to do a lot of readings with people on Blog Talk Radio, and when I did those, I was just doing what we call solar readings, which is when I just open up the ephemeris and I just kind of look at the line of code there. So this is going to be different. We're going to do full on chart readings. How's the show going tonight? Are you enjoying it?
I am enjoying it. I thought it was interesting what you said about the transactional relationships in Capricorn because uh, I had a marriage that was very uh, transactional, and I don't really work well in that mode. So I didn't really understand that. I found that really interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So that's winding down. And we're in for a whole new series and set of rules of engagement here. All right, let's start with your birthday. What's your birthday?
April 18th, 1977
April 18th,
at
1977. Okay.
1:50 p.m.
1:50 p.m. All right.
Lake City, Minnesota.
Lake City, Minnesota.
Now everybody gets to see that 12th house I've been bragging about not being so bad.
All right. Let's see what we got here. Um, Now, are we just going to be looking at your chart or your chart and another person?
No, there's no other people because everyone I meet, I'm 4 years later. I'm still trying to finalize a divorce with a really well. You can see Mars in my seventh house, so it was an abusive marriage.
Right.
I
Yo, and you got this square to Neptune too. Oh boy.
Yeah, I got.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that bad. I've had people because I live it,
Hmm.
and I think that I see the positive aspects. Sometimes when you things get totally destroyed, it kind of opens you up to rebirth your life. Um,
Right.
but I also had my first husband pass away in a car
Uh-huh.
accident.
Right.
So I'm just like, I'm coming from the aspect of I don't really see much hope in a relationship. I've had a lot of weird Pluto experiences this year. I'm assuming it's Pluto squaring my sun with like really younger than me people, like hitting on me. Like I'm not out trying to date, but um, like weird things like the Gen Zs you were talking about being like, we should get together, you should whip me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm a Virgo. I'm very like,
Really?
yeah, I'm very so I'm wondering about that. Like, is that gonna stop? Because like these people are my son's age and I'm like, am I doing something wrong? Like, am I putting off some kind of vampy? Because I'm really boring. Like, I'm looking at 400 books in my bedroom. Like, I'm not a exciting person.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, you do have Venus and Aries in your eighth house.
I do, but it's with my south node. So everybody that talks about that, I'm like, well, maybe I never really was a
When's your
dater.
birthday? When's your birthday again? April 18th. Is that it?
Yes.
It's not with your south node.
Well, there was a partial eclipse on my birthday.
Yes, I can see that, but it's not near your south node though. Venus is 15 degrees away from your south node.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
you
in the eighth house, and your south node is in the ninth house. Those are very different territories. So just a simple clarification there. But Venus in the eighth house, I got to tell you, full disclosure, I was with somebody with Venus in the eighth house in Aries,
yeah.
and even though they may look boring on the surface, there's something else going on underneath the surface there.
Well, I never really dated anybody. I just dated and got married. So maybe if
Mhm.
I was somebody that dated somebody outside of a marriage, like I admit
I
that
think they're just picking up on your Venus in the eighth house. That's what I think.
well, I
That,
think that could probably mean a lot of different
and
things.
you also have that Venus Pluto opposition too, right? That's the
Yes.
Widowmaker,
Yes.
and you had a husband die on you. Ah, that's interesting.
Yes.
Isn't that weird how astrology gets played out in a chart like that, and you see the Widowmaker in action? It's like, oh wow,
So it's comforting, and that actually just happened this last January 1st, not this one, the one the year before. And there was a bunch of stuff going on in Capricorn then. I think it was Venus retrograde and a bunch of stuff there. So
right. Well, as far as relationship goes, you've got Saturn coming up on your descendant, and that's always an important time in a person's life when it comes to relationship. And I have a story that I like to tell about the Saturn transit or the ingress into the seventh house. And I guess, well, how personal can I get with this? Um, all right, I'll try to keep it impersonal. But for those of you who know, you'll know. So I was being interviewed many years ago in Boulder, Colorado, by somebody who is a well-known interviewer, and we sat down. We were having breakfast. It wasn't for the interview; it was just for to get to know each other. And about three-quarters of the way through our breakfast, um, I asked her, I said, so what's your sign and what's your rising sign? She said, well, I'm a Taurus rising and I'm a Scorpio sun. So of course I knew where Saturn was at that time. It was just ingressing into Scorpio. And I looked at her and I said, well, you got some changes that are coming in relationship and some things to kind of sort out, work through. Um, and I'm kind of looking at him, trying to articulate like how far can I go and talk about this. And the minute I said that, maybe just half a minute after I said that, her husband walks in to this cafe and she introduces me to her husband. And there was this really interesting moment where it was like we kind of knew that there was something about the timing, right? There was something about the timing and me bringing that thing up and then him walking through and being there. And then, sure enough, I think 6 to 8 months later, they wound up getting a divorce. And then we circled back and, we kind of talked about that moment when it happened and what I, intuited, where that was going. And when you get into astrology, you understand these things. And with Saturn here, right, this is where contracts are in the seventh house. And when Saturn comes into the space and the place of contracts, you have to really look at, if you're in a relationship, what is your relationship doing? Is it fulfilling your needs and the contract that two people have made together? Right? That's the Saturn moment. If you're together, if you're not together or you don't have anybody in your life, that Saturn transit can be very auspicious. And a lot of people don't really understand that about Saturn going into the seventh house. It's one of the best transits for embarking on a relationship and being in a place like Minnesota. I don't know where you are in Minnesota, but maybe a bit more limited than in other places. And that's not really how Saturn operates anyway, right? So I would say for you, just on the transit of Saturn, you're about to embark on a pretty interesting period in time with Saturn. And then you've got 2 years to the run up of the Saturn-Mars conjunction. That's a whole other discussion in terms of Saturn's energy pattern. And look, when you're born 77, I mean, Candace, you're pretty young still. I'm just going to come right out and say that, right? But what I was going to say before I looked at your date of birth is that I've had clients who have Saturn in the seventh house natally, and some of their best marriages and partnerships come to them later in life. I've also had people who are older with a Saturn transit of the seventh, and they've actually gotten, committed, married, right, however that looks. So I would say, the surf's up, right? It's coming. And not only that, but you're going to have Saturn in a nice sextile. Where's your moon? What degree is your
Taurus.
moon? Taurus, 2 Taurus, right? Yeah. So early on, you have a Saturn moon sextile. I think that's pretty cool, right? That's when your relationships can become more grounded and more formal in a lot of ways. And by the way, you get Saturn coming into the seventh house. If you're older, the people that you can be with can also be younger. That's the flip side of Saturn there. So
do you think it's fair to I guess I'm not, I don't interpret charts like you. Do you think it's fair with my chart to just feel like I'm kind of done with relationships?
No.
Okay. Because
you also have Jupiter. You also have Jupiter getting ready to conjunct Venus in your chart.
Yeah.
Right. That brings you more. And you got a grand trine. You got a Venus trine Saturn and a Venus trine Neptune. If you have a Venus trine Saturn, we look at Saturn coming into the seventh house, which, right, that's it's the house of Venus. So it doesn't completely emulate your grand trine, but there's enough elements in there. So yeah, all it takes, Saturn does not bring you a lot, but what it will bring you is it will bring you something very, very specific. And I like it. I like the Saturn transit through your seventh house in Pisces, because Pisces can also break down doors and walls. Right now, you will have a bit of that Saturn Neptune square coming up, probably around 2024. So anything that it starts, this year or even in the onset of 2023, you get a bit of a test in 2024. But you've got that grand trine with Neptune and Venus and Saturn. So you could probably sort that out and balance that out. No, I think you're in a good place, believe it or not.
It seems like to me, though, I lose myself in people. And I literally got kind of like, well, you see my 12th house from the way.
Well, here's this is how I work with astrology. Okay. You've had Neptune going through your seventh house since 2011. So that means you've had the ability to clean up a lot of stuff.
But don't you think that you have Virgo placements, and I don't know where they are in your chart, but don't you think that the people with Neptune across from Virgo have been around people that are just kind of so deceitful that you almost have to listen to your intuition to find the truth?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think so. I mean, I have Mercury Moon conjunction in my chart, which is, I think, just intuitive anyway.
Yeah, I have that mine pretty close too.
Yeah, you do. I just look at Neptune. You've had Neptune going through your seventh house since 2011, and so you're gonna move through a lot of shit with Neptune going through your seventh house. You go through a lot of delusion, a lot of lies, a lot of probably giving people money that you shouldn't give.
Yeah.
Right. But you've gone through that now. Right.
Okay.
It's gone. It's
so
moved.
You're saying Saturn is smooth sailing, because I kind of like him up in my 12th. That kind of benefits me.
Saturn is the Saturn transit of the seventh house is one of the best transits of Saturn in the zodiac on the wheel.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. I'm excited for Saturn then.
Just and you don't really have to do anything, right? That's the nature of Saturn. You don't have to really do anything. At some point, somebody will show up and they'll kind of stand out and apart from the crowd. And they may be very different than somebody you've connected with before. Remember, it only takes one, right? Saturn's one. Jupiter brings you a lot. Doesn't always bring you the one, but it brings you a lot of a lot of candidates, right? But Saturn really, really hones it into that kind of one potentiality. So I like it. I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah, Jupiter and Neptune was no good. I had a lot of experiences with people that were suicidal, actually. I think that has to do with my Mars. I do meditations
Uh huh.
for people in like women's jails and hospitals and
Oh, that's
stuff.
a big 12th house thing for you with your
Yeah,
Saturn there. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Very interesting. All right, Candace.
Thank you
Are
so
you?
much.
Thanks for being here.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Night.
Bye bye. Okay, so where's Candace? She's gone. At least I think she's gone. Let me see if I can. Uh, Candace. I'm gonna kick you from the studio. All right, let's bring on. I'm just gonna kick Candace from. Here we go. Let's bring on Chelsea. Hey, Chelsea.
Hi.
You got a. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So you have a YouTube channel yourself, right?
I do. Yeah.
Right. I just subscribed to your channel.
You did?
Yeah, I
Thank
did.
you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So you're doing dailies, right? You're doing like daily stuff,
Well, I am gonna move more to like individual transits,
right?
but I've been doing like weeklies as well as like new moons, full moons.
How old are you, Chelsea? We're gonna find out here anyway. How old
I'm
are you?
I'm 31.
31. And how did you get into astrology?
Um, I mean, I've always been kind of into like strange things. But I really got into it maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. I was in real estate and I would like go to the office and I would like be with the other realtors and like pull up charts and everyone would be talking about their deals and I would be like, oh, like looking up the charts and stuff.
Right.
And yeah, but so it's been like consistent in my life, but always kind of like in the background, but I'm bringing it more to the forefront now.
Right. Cool. All right. So um clearly you're a millennial. What's it been like dating and having relationships
Uh,
in the realm of the millennials?
I actually have not had a serious relationship with a millennial since I was in like maybe like 20. I My longest relationship was with a Gen X, and then my most recent one was with a Gen Z.
Right.
So
Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. So you're not in a relationship now, right?
no.
All right. So let's get your chart up here.
I
Um,
have a question as well.
sure. Go ahead.
Because I've started looking more into the asteroids recently.
Mhm.
And so I noticed just the other day that I have a yod with Eris at the apex in my seventh house, and it's with Mars and Pluto,
Oh, so you have Mars and Pluto around Eris?
creating a yod. So, like, my
Okay.
Mars is,
So Pluto and Mars are on the backside of the
yes,
yod.
they're the
Okay.
sextile. And I
Right.
mean, it's with like my Pluto is 17 degrees, my Mars is 18, and the Eris is 17. So they're fairly close.
Right. Yeah. So how did you've been playing with this for a while? Have you seen it show up in your relationships?
I mean, I was kind of wondering like what you might I mean, yeah, definitely like power struggles in relationships, but also issues with like my last relationship was a big issue with power struggles. Like I wasn't even trying to have any sort of power struggles and he was like, "You always want to have power over me." But like so maybe it comes up and I don't even realize.
Well, I think that's the nature of Aries, right? Because you have Eris and Aries over there, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's the nature of Aries in the seventh house in general. You know, you deal. It's really an interesting dichotomy because I'm assuming we'll look at your chart here in a second. You're Libra rising, right? Is that right?
No, I'm 28 degrees Virgo.
Virgo. Okay, but you still have Libra in your first house,
Yeah.
right? So people will see the Virgo part, but they'll also see a lot of the Libra part, and they'll say, "Well, you're really nice, you're really kind, you're punctual, all the things that come along with the Libra ascendant." And then they get over into the seventh house, and not that you would want to necessarily dominate people, but the Aries part is going to come up. It's just going to come up, right?
Yeah.
And you're probably very competent too. I mean, that's another piece. If you're Virgo rising, even at that 28th degree, you're probably really competent. So, I hate to make this a generalization, but women are generally more together than men in a lot of areas in their life, right? So if a man doesn't know who he is, that's a big problem, right? If a man doesn't know who he is and kind of what principles he stands on and can handle his life in a competent way, I think by and large, you'll come into that kind of dichotomy in the seventh house in general, right? So, without looking at your chart, and you and I kind of going to explore it here, maybe what Eris does over there as part of the yod is it tweaks the people that you're with and gets into their space, and it shows them where they're not either up to speed or whole, right? Like, and you don't even have to really do anything. Maybe all you have to do is just be competent and show up, and as a result of that, they're dealing with their own deficits. So let's take a look.
I also noticed because Eris moves so slow, but it's like I think it's like right out of my 7th house at this point.
Well, let's take a look.
But so I was wondering, like, what shift, like that would bring a shift of energy, surely, right? Would that create more harmony?
Well, can we take a look at it? Let's take a look at it.
Yeah.
All right. You got to give me your birthday.
Oh, I gave it in the chat. Okay. So it's August 13th, 1991.
Okay. All right. What time?
9:33 a.m.
And where?
Andrews Air Force Base, Maryland.
There it is. It's funny, they have two settings, one's for the hospital, one's for the base. And they're different by 1 degree. It's weird. Okay. Let me throw some asteroids in there. Let me throw Eris in there, so we know what we're talking about.
Do you typically include asteroids when you're looking at like yods?
Generally, I don't. But because I don't place that kind of emphasis on asteroids, but we'll play with it for your sake and for the viewing audience. So it's not going to show up completely as the odd, but we'll make the demarcation. All right, let's do this. Let me do the share. Present right there. I think that's you. Oh, nope, chart now. Let me go back. Let me go back. Stop share. Let me pull this off so I can do that. All right. Yeah, I think that's you. Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So what's interesting is that you have Mars, which is part of the yod, right? So of course, Aries is the ruler of Mars. So this is kind of an interesting dynamic. And then you also have Mars in the 12th house, which is generally considered hidden enemies, right? I mean, that's That's the nature of Mars there. And I've seen this. I've seen Mars in the eighth house in women's charts where they elicit more kind of ambient aggression from other women with
Mm,
Mars there, right? That can happen with Mars.
yeah.
But in your case, because you have this yod with Eris, it doesn't always have to be women. In this case, it can manifest in men. So my sense here, and especially with Pluto playing with this sextile, my sense is that you're drawing out, for lack of a better term, toxins from from men in your relationship when it comes to ideas of control, or on the other side of it, being controlled, because you'll get the other side of it too. And I don't know if you've run into that part, but that can happen as well. So it feels to me like, Eris is all about kind of discord and, things starting off in one direction and then they completely move into another direction. It seems like at times, you have no, theoretical choice over the matter. To me, um, I could see this as you sort of smoking people out in relationship. It's like, okay, well, you just got found out, right? Because you can't either handle my competence or you can't handle, your own inability to, live your life in an authentic and an evolved way, whatever that is for that person. So that's kind of how I see this, because you're also dealing with Pluto, down here in your second house, and Pluto second house um, aspects are really profound when it comes to very deep psychological structure and order in a person's life, right? So everything in your life, in a lot of ways, has to go through Pluto, and once you become really okay with Pluto in your chart in your life, and facing the threat of being wiped out, or death, or your finances being bottomed out. I mean, this is what Pluto does, right? Then ultimately you just kind of go through all these different stages of Pluto, and then Pluto becomes your ally. Like nothing can touch you at that point. Like once you've gone through all of the machinations of Pluto and the transformations of Pluto, it's profound, right? It's a really, really profound placement. It could lead to really tremendous resources. But in this case, playing the part of the yod, you're going to be feeding both Mars and Pluto into that yod. So there's going to be this deeper kind of psychological evaluation, and emerging out of the 12th house, I could easily see these kinds of power struggles emerging. You're going to get that anyway with Aries, right? That's just the nature
Mhm.
of Aries, because you get in and you get in a relationship. Oh my God, it's all beautiful over here. Look at this, so Neptunian and beautiful and romantic, and then all of a sudden you go into Aries, and it's like, okay, there's turbulence. We got to
It
get
was
through this.
all an illusion.
Yeah, there's turbulence here. We got to get through this now. But I feel like this is one of these things that is probably a blessing ultimately, right? Because once you connect with somebody where there aren't those issues,
Mm,
right? Where they don't feel like you're trying to control them, which is really just an evocation of what's going on with them at a much deeper level. Then
yeah.
you understand that, I think I found somebody here, right? I think I found some, because I think you have some really interesting aspects. And you've got a great Libra moon, right? It's a really nice Libra moon. Yeah, it's sure it squares Neptune and you have to work through some things. But you have a nice Libra moon. You should always trust your instincts, by the way.
Mhm.
You've
Yeah.
got that Pallas conjunction with your moon. I mean, you can size people up and balance things out. I think where you kind of get caught up, might be, when you're dealing with family members with Neptune in your fourth house, and maybe not using always the best judgment that you can. Maybe they take advantage of the fact that you're being kind. But I think you have a really interesting way of kind of sorting these things out. But yeah, you got Jupiter over here. Are you popular now? A lot of people knocking on your door with Jupiter in your seventh house.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting some positive momentum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think what'll be interesting is if you find somebody which may not be that far away, right? Because you have
Wait, when you
Chiron here.
asked that, first of all, I thought you meant just connecting with people in general. But like with men
No,
relationships, no positive momentum.
no
I
positive
mean,
momentum. Okay,
I've just been focusing on myself really.
right. Well, that's always the best thing to do. Well, Jupiter theoretically should bring you candidates, right? That's the whole nature of it. But the difference now is that we have Chiron kind of sort of, I wouldn't say blocking Jupiter, but I'll say blocking Jupiter, right?
Mhm.
Because Jupiter is just pure opportunity and Chiron is like a caveat.
Yeah.
It's like a caveat. It's like, well, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I do think that the Chiron conjunction of Eris will be interesting for you
Mm,
because you might have a connection with somebody who could be what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say vulnerable, but it could be a connection with somebody who might theoretically ascribe some fictional idea that you're trying to control them, but then can quickly correct that
mm,
and say, you know what? I just want to tell you, I took another look at this, and that's not true. I realized that there was something that I misinterpreted about what you said, or whatever. That could be kind of a turning point. I think Chiron on Eris moving into that yacht could be a bit of a turning point.
okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. The only thing that I would watch out for is now I'll hit you with another layer of paranoia. The only thing that I would watch out for is somebody who uses that kind of confessionality as a way to be more manipulative. Just watch out for that because
Yeah.
that could happen, right? That could definitely. But I also feel like there's something new. I love Juno in
Yeah.
Aries, so there's something new arriving, right? Something new emerging. So
I
you
feel
were,
that. Well, and
yeah,
Jupiter moves beyond the shadow finally this week.
right. Yeah,
So,
went retrograde before. So I feel like it'll be a force in your seventh house. You also have Neptune, kind of on the periphery here, on the ingress to your seventh as well. And you got that vertex at 25, which
yeah.
I think could be really interesting for you. Um,
Well, Neptune was pretty much at that degree like last year, right?
yes, it was.
It
Then it went
brought a
retrograde.
lot of illusion to my relationships.
Yeah. Well, it comes back
Deceit,
again. It comes,
manipulation.
yeah, you got to see it, right? And this is
Sure
the
did.
interesting thing about the retrogrades and the stations and directs. You get another shot at it, right? You
Yes.
got a little bit of a dose. You got a little bit of a window there.
Yeah.
And I think you're a big personality. You've got the Sun Jupiter conjunction, and you've got a Pluto square. That's pretty formidable in a lot of ways. So even if you're trying to, step yourself down a little bit, and sometimes that might happen with Virgo rising. The true you, the true nature of who you are, will always come through. So, I think you have a lot of vitality and a lot of energy, and that Pluto square I think is really intense and not bad though. I don't think it's bad, right?
Yeah.
I
It's a
think
blessing.
I think you're in this lifetime you're trying to understand power, right? That's your lesson. So whether it's power here through who you are, and how you expand your identity, or the nature of power in relationship, right? With this yod, I mean, I think it's a big part of what you're here to sort through. And your Saturn in the fifth house, I think, is great for astrology. You
Yeah.
starts off as a love, and you got Saturn moving into your sixth, and it can become an avocation. So good for you.
Yeah. Well, and I did a reading with you in November. I don't know if you remember,
Oh
but
yeah, I do remember. We had a great reading.
yeah, it was amazing. Highly
Yeah.
recommend Robert's readings, guys. Like if you're on the fence, go for it. But at that time, I was kind of curious. I was like, well, what do you think about Pluto coming up on my Saturn? And you said that that could be a great opportunity of power for me. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yeah. All right. Well, this
so
has been cool. I'm glad you started your own channel.
Thank you.
And
Me too. It's been a lot of fun. And it's just, I don't know, sharing and talking about things really evolves the understanding of astrology in general.
yeah,
So
yeah. And this is cool. I haven't done this in a long time, and I thought it was a good night to do it.
yeah,
To
well, I
bring
appreciate you and everyone in the chat. It's been a fun couple hours.
Cool. All right, Chelsea. Well, you take good care and
Thank
keep
you.
keep doing your thing. Okay.
Okay, you too. Thanks, Robert.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Look, you guys all lined up. Oh, look who's here. It's
Hey,
Miss
Robert.
Lori. What's
How
going
are
on,
you?
Lori? I'm good. How
How
are
are you,
you?
honey?
It's been a long time since I talked to you.
I know. I've been lurking in the background these
I,
couple
I
last
have,
years.
I have, however, been finding out about you surreptitiously through other people.
It's reciprocal.
Must be the same people.
It's the same people, the best peeps in the entire world.
Yeah. So, are you here to like look at your relationships, Lori?
You know, I am I've been listening to these that you've been talking about, and I thought maybe from a boomer perspective, you did with Candace, I believe her name, you talked about the older people having relationship later on in life.
Yes.
So for me, there's really nobody on the horizon at this point, and I'm very happy. I'm very happy single. I love my own company, but it would be very nice to have something on the horizon. I don't feel anything coming in. There's no tingling on the guitar strings right now. So
I like that. No tingling on the guitar strings. Well,
yeah,
maybe we'll turn you into an Aeolian harp. Do you know
well,
what an
something. And I remember in my reading with you, you did say something was coming for me later on in my life.
Okay.
So I need to give you, unless you still have my chart.
No, you need to give up the details.
All right, December 13th, 1955, 12:35 a.m., Los Angeles.
All right. All right. So and we got Eris over there. We've introduced Eris now into the proceedings. Okay, let's bring you up here and do a little present and share screen. And I think that's it. Here we go. All right, Lori, there you are.
There it is.
All right. So this is a real theme tonight, right? So we've had, let's see, Chelsea was 28 Virgo, and now you're 1 Libra. So we're still dealing with Aries over here. And there's Eris and there's the vertex. And here is Jupiter coming into your 7th house. All right. So I just talked about how Jupiter brings more of where it is. And 7th house is partnership, relationship. And guess what? Aries is men. Now, I would say if you're interested in a relationship during this time, which is quite probable,
Robert, I'm open. My heart is always open, but I just don't, I'm not out seeking as like I'm not in bars and I'm not
no,
in
no, 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 no,
apps,
no. So when we look at Aries, right? What do we think of when we start playing around with Aries? Aries environments. So we're talking things like shooting ranges,
Oh, there you
right?
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Military, military, ex-military. That's all part of Aries. First responders, police, EMTs. So maybe you'll be an offender bender, and a cop will come by and get your number. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, that's how Aries works, right? If you're interested, in relationship, you say you're not looking, but you're here and you're asking the question. Then I would say you have to put yourself into an Aries environment in order to take advantage of Jupiter in Aries. So those are just some of the things that I was talking about, and I was half joking about a shooting range, but that's where you'll meet people who are going to be Aries dominant or have an Aries dominant theme.
Right, right.
How's your work life coming? What's going on with you with work?
Well, I work at Lowe's as a cashier, so I'm in with the construction guys and people that are fixing up their houses. There's a lot of men,
Well, that's
in
a
there.
very Aries thing, right? That's all
It's a
Aries.
very Aries thing, a very
Yeah.
construction kind of home building kind of environment. So
Hmm.
I enjoy that. I don't really, I was telling Scoobs that it's funny that other people at work will come up and say, "Hey, did you see how that guy was looking at you?" And I go, "What guy? I didn't see anything."
Interesting. Huh.
So I
Interesting.
evidently it's not that men are coming in and not showing an interest in me. I'm just not getting it. Maybe.
Well, so where are we? I think April will be an interesting month for you
Oh, good. Okay.
because the sun will also be in your seventh house. So we're talking sun and Jupiter. And then also Jupiter will be squaring Venus in April. And that could be a very interesting square, especially since you have Venus in the fourth house and you're in the home improvement world by working at Home Depot, right?
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of times people think that anytime you start talking about a square, it's a complete negative. I disagree with that. And I especially disagree with Jupiter squares because Jupiter squares can bring the element of risk or, a bit of a gamble, taking a chance. So I could see, with your seventh house lit up and loaded. I don't know where Mercury's going to be, but I'm sure Mercury's probably not that far behind.
And that's in
So
April. That starts in
yeah,
April.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you'll have a party in your seventh house, and if something doesn't happen in April, then you'll probably have to theoretically wait till that Saturn transit that goes all the way up through your sixth house. But the two aren't always mutually exclusive, right? Like you could theoretically connect with somebody with a Jupiter transit of your seventh, and then eventually when Saturn comes up here in conjunction with your seventh house cusp, it can become more formal. So at the very least, you might have some fun times.
Well, I would love some fun times too. Like I say,
I
I'm
know you would. You're a
open.
fun gal. You're a fun
Yeah.
gal.
Saggy, I got Saggy sun and moon and
Yeah.
Mercury, actually Saggy. So
Yeah.
Saggies are fun.
Go hang out at the VFW.
Oh, there you go. Or the Elks Lodge. They like to drink.
Right. Now the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars.
There you go.
You get into that Aries over in the seventh house. No, I think you should have a nice run with Jupiter going through your seventh house in Aries, and especially right, when it's squaring your Venus, it'll be trining your sun. I mean, it's Jupiter sun trine. I mean,
Nice.
you'll be noticed. You'll totally be noticed. I think the challenge is you noticing you're being noticed. I think that'll be the challenge.
That is a
Um,
challenge for me right now. I don't know. I don't know why. I guess I'm not really, I need to get my mindset
I
to
think,
pick up the vibe or
I
something.
think, okay. I think it's an esteem issue. That's what I think. Right. And it's just like, you know what? I've been out of circulation for a while.
Yeah.
I got my head down, and unfortunately we're in this really deconstructionist phase of our lives. And we're a lot of people are basically settling for whatever they can get, right? Well, I'm just gonna settle for a day where somebody doesn't tell me I have to wear a fucking mask, right? Like our
Right.
expectations have been really lowered in a lot of ways. So I think that's part of it. It's not just your own relationship with your esteem, but it's also like what we can expect culturally. And we've really, really, really had to tamper down our expectations culturally.
You
So I
know,
think that's part of it.
I'm pretty youthful. You know, I'm love I have a lot of interests, personal interests, and I'm active and things like that. And I have a hard time finding myself with some of the people that I'm looking at. Maybe that's it, you know?
Can be, right? So this gets into a much deeper discussion. And I've had this discussion before where I've talked about this on my show. And there was a period of time when I was doing readings for, let's go back 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I would get women clients who would lament to me that their husbands aren't spiritual enough, right? Or their boyfriends aren't spiritual enough. And they're trying to get them to open to these other realities. And I'm saying, well, that's really not what their world is, right? Their world is more nuts and boltsy, right? That's not what they necessarily signed up for, but I understand where you're coming from. And then that changed, and it became women who were like, I'm trying to get my husband to understand what's in these damn shots, right?
Yes.
And it's just like women always seem to be slightly ahead of the curve on men with these things, right? So it can be challenging, I think, for women to try to find a man who is kind of up to speed in that way. And but it's not impossible, and I feel like we're starting to close that gap, right? We're starting to close that gap a little bit.
Right, right. Well, I mean, like I say, I'm always open. I'm very chatty and am friendly, and at work I feel like I'm very approachable.
Well,
So
so where are you, in Torrance, California? Is that where you are?
I'm in Huntington Beach.
So guys, if you're out there, go to the Huntington Beach
Lowe's.
Lowe's. There you go. Go say hi to Lori.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, really, honestly. But thank you, Robert, for this. This is great. I need to contact you for another reading. We'll get maybe a little more in depth. How about that?
Uh, Lori, it's just great to hear your voice. I'm glad you're doing well.
Yes, I'm doing really well, Robert. And it's
And
good to hear you too.
yeah, you take good care, okay?
All right, you too. Thank you,
All right.
Robert.
All right, bye.
Bye bye.
Okay. I'm going to just gently kick Lori from the studio. Let's bring on our first dude, Jonathan Pacone. What's happening, Jonathan?
What's going on, Robert?
How are you?
I'm just chilling in the Ted shed. Just heated up some tea and figure I'd do this since get it a little man-centric.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have a little bro vibe in here. So how's your day going?
Oh, it was beautiful. It was 55 degrees and sunny in Kentucky, and
Nice.
it was a nice day. You could sunbathe in February. It was kind of rare.
Beautiful. 55 and sunbathing. So you're looking to
Yeah.
sunbathe with another sunbather? Is that
And I'll be honest with you, Robert. I'm going to speak for men my age. Most of them are either opting in to find a relationship or opting out. It's one or the other. There's no middle ground. Well, maybe it's either they're choosing the date or they're not choosing the date right now.
So you're a millennial, right, Jonathan?
84, December 11th.
Yeah, you're right on the cusp. So I would say you're in the millennial zone, men your age, post 85, 86. I mean, that's how millennials work, right? That's either on or off, in or out. There's no in between, right? So your experience, if you had to break it down to a percentage of the men that you know, how many are in and how many are out percentage wise?
I'd probably say 90% are out and 10% are in, and it's just because they're married.
Wow.
And if they were married or have kids, they've been recently divorced. A lot of guys are running solo after divorce. And most of my friends that are married, they usually stay married, but I'm coming from a military background, and a lot of them are going through divorces, especially millennials. But we were raised by boomers, which went through a lot of divorce during the 90s. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, you guys were raised by people my age. So if I was 24, well, I was 24 in 1984. So I technically I could have been your parent age wise. So we're just on the other side of the boomers, right?
Mhm.
A lot of the boomers wound up raising the Gen X kids. So you're kind of in that interesting little inner zone between those two generations. But still, you know, there is that big divorce wave that took place during that time. Oh, by the way, Kansas City 28, Philadelphia 27. What did I say? I said Kansas City would come back. It's going to come down to about a 3.5 spread here at the end of the game. So, do you want me to get into your chart and kind of look at things, or what do you want to do, Jonathan?
I guess we could, but I'd prefer more of a chart just to see where, you know, generationally where the men are going. Because at this rate, it's looking like there's going to be a lot of old single people. We're slowly turning into Japan. I mean, you've seen those documentaries of old elderly Japanese with no family taking care of them. It's not a good future.
Well, this is a really interesting piece of discussion you brought up. I was watching some clips of Joe Rogan tonight, and I found this one guy. I forget his name, but he was really interesting, and he hooked me because he was talking about the cartels in Mexico and how the Sinaloa cartel was broken up, and now you have this Jalisco cartel. And these guys are just they're just brutal. They're, you know, the Sinaloa cartel was kind of old school. These guys are not. But then he had this other selection or section where he was talking about China in population, and then he was talking about global population in general, and global population in general is it's all starting to decline. It's all declining, and this whole idea that we have way too many people and not enough resources is a complete and utter sham. But in this country, there's been a great deal of psychological and social manipulation around the population, and it's more this. It's not has nothing to do with the fact that they don't want a bunch of bodies around here taking up space and using more carbon. It has everything to do with the fact that they want to atomize the nuclear family, right? This is really the foundational piece of all of this, so that when you have introduced, and I talked about some of these issues earlier on in the show, you might have been around to hear them. You know, I talked about how uh, things like dating apps have completely obliterated.
It's a breeding program, and it's working beautifully.
Yeah, absolutely obliterated family structure and intimacy. Completely obliterated it. And I talked about this in light of Pluto in Capricorn and how relationships have become transactional, right? They're just completely transactional. And then what happens is that you get young women, and again, we can dial this thing back about 5, 6 years. I remember when Tinder came out. I was living in Austin. And what happens is that now you have this wave of young women who get to right around 27, 28, and then they're getting theoretically, if this whole kind of progression continues, they get aged out. They're aged out by about 26, 27. And these predators who are using these dating apps, you know, keep wanting to hang out and be with younger and younger women, right? So they age out, and then all of a sudden, now what are they doing, right? And where are their values?
Well,
And I'm not,
the apps gives the females options, but the apps also give men who have options.
that's right. That's
And
right.
they
Which I
prefer,
talked about. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
they prefer to date the younger women if they have that. But there are people who use that to take advantage of older women who are having diminishing options.
I've seen, well, so I'll give you another example of that too. Since we're getting into some Plutonian territory, I'm also seeing older women, which is very interesting and unusual. But I'm seeing older women. These aren't just dating apps now, right? There are apps that are out there that are essentially escort apps, and they
Yep.
are ubiquitous. They're everywhere.
I think
There,
one's called Seeking Arrangements is one of them.
there's a number of them, and they're in small towns across
Yeah, the
America.
cute girl at Starbucks, she could be on that getting some old dude to pay for a Gucci bag and take her out on a date for $1,000.
That's right. And these things are ubiquitous now, right? I've seen them. Not that I was looking for them. I sort of backed into one, and then I was like, okay, well, if it's here, is it over here? Yes. Is it here? Is it over here? Yes. So what I noticed is that there were women in their 40s, like mid to late 40s, who were coming in under the MILF banner, right? And they're kind of doing what you were talking about with the dating apps, but clearly this is pay for play, right? This is a pay for this again. This is all Pluto and Capricorn stuff. This is all transactional, and that's going to go away, right? That transactional functionality is going to go away. Pluto and
When the
Aquarius
EMP goes off and wipes out
it could be absolutely. It's like
the only hope we got.
at that point, who's got the cows and who's got the chickens,
You
right?
just can't compete against a cell phone, Robert. With a woman's got 100 options of dudes in her town.
I hear you,
can't
man.
compete with that, dude.
I hear you, but I'm telling you, I can see this coming. This Pluto and Aquarius piece. There's going to be an inversion, and we're really at like the high tide of this kind of transactional reality with Pluto and Capricorn. And with Pluto and Aquarius, the thing about Pluto and Aquarius that I think is, again, the message from the stars is that people think that we're going to go down this World Economic Forum path. We're going to be herded into 15-minute cities. Like, some of that has some traction, and to some degree, it will be true. But I'm telling you, there is going to be an inversion and a revolt against those things. That's going to happen. And the people who are going to be part of that groundswell are going to be these Gen Z kids, because they're already snapping out of the trance. Even the ones that use the apps, they're gonna cycle through those things and they'll be done. Like, they will be done. They'll be through it by the time they're 22 or 23, and they'll be done.
I can carry on conversation with Gen Zers with a mature conversation about life and women and saving money and staying away from drugs. Gen Zers, they're maturing very quick, and I think the internet has a lot to do with their development too.
Well, that's exactly where we were at the beginning of the show, and they're the first generation that grew up with the internet from start to finish. I mean, even the millennials, the first millennials don't really get the touch.
I graduated without a cell phone. That didn't start until a year after I graduated. So
yeah, there you go. So I feel like and you and I had this discussion previously in private, and I feel like that your time is going to come, and you will connect, and I feel like this whole idea is going to invert. And what's interesting about Aquarius is that people think that this is going to be a very collective kind of experience, right? Like, we'll live in extended families, or we'll live in tribes, and at some point that might even be true. But I just keep thinking about these Pluto and Sagittarius kids, and if you ever study Sagittarius as a sign, you'll understand that people who are Sagittarian go through a pole shift with their morality at least once in their life, sometimes even twice. Little Richard, who's a Sagittarius, went through that pole shift twice. And by the end of his life, Little Richard has found Jesus. He's married. Before that, he's, wild as fuck. He's queer as a $3 bill. I mean, you want to see Sagittarius in action, just take a look at Little Richard's life, right? And you have a whole generation of kids born under Pluto and Sagittarius. So if the prevailing moral compass, right, is there when they were born and came into being, they'll flip the compass. That's just how Sagittarius is wired. So I have a lot of hope for this generation, and as a result of that, I think we'll see a return in a lot of ways to monogamy and people wanting to connect and people and again, I also think that some of this is also going to be, and this gets back to your point, Jonathan, when the EMP hits, I think some of this is going to be based on, look, you're going to have to survive, right? Whether it's an EMP or whether it's a major crash in distribution or supply chain comes down, you're going to have to survive. And people are going to be forced together by circumstances in order to do that. So you're going to see this interesting morality shift, and then people being impelled to be with one another because it's going to be easier that way. And from what I know about you, the way you've set some things up, you should be just fine. You have another sunbather out there in the raw in the 55-degree day in Kentucky.
I'm planning to shift out west, going to a different state just to try it because I'm done with the project building this cabin. So I'm going to be going out west, and I know that where I'm going out is I think Idaho. I'm going to visit, and I know there's a lot of West Coast chicks going down there, so I'll probably run into some people.
Gotta love those West Coast chicks. Maybe you should go find Lori down there in Costa Mesa or wherever she is. No, I'm just kidding.
They have a new saying for females. It's called granola girls. You ever heard of that?
Granola girls? No. Well, a little bit, but
little hippie drink kombucha.
Yeah.
Like going on hikes and they eat granola bars all the time.
That sounds all right by me, man.
Well, I just want to say thanks, Robert, for what you do. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Just positive thoughts on my journey out west, and make sure I learn a good lesson and it's safe, and I come back home. And I appreciate what you do,
Jonathan. So, you'll be fine, man. You'll be fine. The road will unfold before you.
Yeah, I'd like to have a reincarnation. I don't want to have any reincarnation binds here because if I have a kid, then that means that my DNA is back on this planet and I could be coming back here. So if I don't have a kid, then I'm unbinded to have to come here. So.
All right, man. Be free.
All right. Later, bro.
See you. All right. Lana Labonte.
Hello.
Did I say that correctly? Is it Lana Labonte or Lana Labonte?
You said it perfectly, and it's very rare that some people do. So I appreciate you.
Well, I spent too much time going to college to get an English literature degree. I hope looks like it might have panned out there. So how are you?
I'm doing actually pretty well, considering all these crazy transits, all this crazy energy, the earth rumbling, and it's rumbling in us, and it's just like, wah.
Well, Lana, I know you want to know what the score of the Super Bowl is. It's Kansas City 35, Philadelphia 27. And let's see who has the ball. It's Philadelphia. I would assume here that Philadelphia will score, make it 35-34, just so that the bettors can get what they need. So are we looking at a relationship here? Is that what we're doing, or what do you want to do?
You know what? Just see what stands out to you the most when you look up my chart, because this has been one hell of a year.
So are you married, in a relationship? What's your relationship status?
I have been single now. Oh, goodness. What year are we in? Oh, over 4 years now. Yeah.
4 years. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get you in here. All right. Hit me with your digits.
8174 at 10:38 a.m., Boston, Massachusetts.
Was it, did you say 10:31 a.m.? Is that what it was?
38. 10:38.
10:38. Boston, Mass. Okay. All right. God, we got a theme here tonight. We got late Virgo, Libra rising, right? You got that Libra rising on your chart, 6 degrees.
Yep.
Is that right? hold on a second. I want to make sure. Okay, what I want to make sure I got this. What was your date again? Hold on. I want to make sure I got this right.
August 1st, 74.
August 1st. That's right. I was like, okay, that's my father's birthday, August 1st.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So Libra rising,
Mhm.
Pluto, you're always going to go through something intense, aren't you? With
Seems
Pluto
like
on your ascendant. Yeah. What's it like living with Pluto on your ascendant?
lesson after lesson after lesson. I feel like the best way to describe the way my life has been, other than the cat that's had more than 9 lives, is the sacrificial lamb. I experience things before others do in a way that I feel like it teaches me how not to treat others, or
Interesting.
passion, that because I've been through something, that I can see how it affects others.
You have
Oh.
you have a really complex chart. There's a lot going on there, man. A lot going on. Yeah. Then your Pluto in a wide square with Saturn as well. Wow, that's intense. And then you've got that Sun at 8 Leo,
Mm.
but it also sextiles Pluto too. So you can recover from the intensity. You can recover from it. Makes you better in a lot of ways. Do you find that to be true?
The resilience factor.
Yes.
I've had my ass kicked and handed to me this past year, but yeah, predominantly yes. It's just I'm just like over here going, okay, I need a breather.
And the trine to Neptune is also very forgiving in your chart.
Mhm.
Very forgiving. You have a lot of empathy. Yeah, very interesting. Well, here we go. I mean, it's the theme of the night. You're the third person tonight with a Jupiter transit of your third house. So I could just hit rewind and with the conversation here. Jupiter brings more. It brings more people. It brings um, more contracts. Aries, more men. Sometimes it can bring more conflict. I mean, that's the nature of Aries in general, right? And then next year, what do you go through your Chiron return?
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Chiron returns are powerful. I think in a lot of ways, life really begins at the Chiron return. I'm not kidding you. Like once you go through the Chiron return, and there's a reason why it's such an important deal in human design.
Mm.
It's because you get to integrate everything at the Chiron return. And 50 is people think 50 is old. It's not really old. It's not really young. It's like you're in this sweet spot. And I think the 50s are probably the best decade, really, for
Mhm.
people because their body is still pretty good in the 50s if you take care of yourself. And you go through the Chiron return and you've integrated a lot of the things that have happened to you over the course of your life. And then you can teach from Chiron. You can guide and help other people through Chiron. And my Chiron return was incredibly powerful. It was not easy because I had some things I hadn't resolved. And that's the nature of the Chiron return, right? If you haven't resolved something, then it rears its ugly head with Chiron. So you have to deal with it, right? And for you, it would clearly be the seventh house. It would clearly be relationship. It would clearly be your relationship with men and your power, your own personal power inside of relationship, and it relates to men. It would go back to the age of around 23, 24, maybe 25. That's where we have what's called a chirotic crisis. So whatever happened to you between that age, 23, 24, and where you're going to be when you're 50 is pretty significant. And anything that you haven't resolved as a result of whatever happened during that time will come up and you get to suture it. You get to heal it. You get to come from this place. And I really feel like this is an important transit for you because Chiron is really in this grand cross, where it opposes Uranus, which many Chirons do, not all, squares off against Mercury and squares off against the moon, right? So you have Chiron coming around here and literally having the opportunity to seal the grand cross, right? So that you can move on in a lot of ways from areas of your life where, you've had to go through some degree of, I would say, loss and humiliation when it comes to relationships and contracts and power struggles to some degree with men, right? Then it comes in here and you try into your natal Mars and can be a real kickstart for you. And then you also have the true node dropping down, and that'll happen next year. So, all these forces are gathering together in your seventh house. And, it generally lines up for a lot of intense opportunity and intense kind of interaction with that part of your chart. So we're dealing with relationship, and we're dealing with, being alone. I mean, that's the other thing with Aries is really solo, where like Aries is, well, like, I don't need anybody. I'm okay. I'm good. But with all those planets over there, it not only puts an emphasis on that, it also brings the potential for opportunity. And that true node is going to hit your Chiron by the end of the year. And to me, that would be an indication that part of you that's more vulnerable would be more open to connecting and finding out what's available for you in conjunction or relationship with another person. So, I know you probably didn't come on here or to look at that or say, hey, can you solve this for me? But as an astrologer, I'm just seeing all these forces begin to gather in your seventh house. And, how could you not, at the very least, interact with the idea of connecting with another,
Mhm.
right? How could you not? I think it's, on the table. Could it wind up as something, more significant? At the very least, I think it could be healing, right?
Mhm.
The opportunity to heal. So, was there anything significant that happened right around 23, 24 in your life? I'm just curious.
24 would have been, what would that be? 98. Let's see. 1998. Oh yeah, I was working at, at no such agency. I was in the Air Force at the time. So I have had my issues with authority and three-letter agencies and with government contracting and all that. So I have a whole story about stuff like that. But and various times of my career. And then I went to England probably around 1998, but I was stationed in Belgium after that for NATO, working with NATO. I actually got my breast implants put in 1999, and I just had them out like the second, like after 23 years of breast implants, I had them taken out. That was huge because I had a rupture in one of them.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I lost my dog about a month after that. And because it opened up so much of my heart, like it really it just made me so much more tender, but tender in a much more intuitive way than beyond what I already was, to the point where I started calling people out for not showing up and being receptive, like that receptive friend. I'm the one people turn to. And then when I was going through my time of need, it was like crickets. And so this has been the year of just cleansing and clearing the paradigm.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting and insightful year. And
Well, starting 2020, you had Pluto on your moon, right? And man, that's heavy. That's heavy. So the last
mm,
3 years for you with Pluto conjuncting around your moon, and that's a big deal, squaring Uranus in your chart. So I feel like, based on what you just shared with me, that you know whatever kind of gaps or missing pieces you have with your past and your relationship with three letters and the military, like that, to me seems like that's a chapter that's about to be closed, especially with the Chiron return. And it'll be interesting. And who knows, maybe somebody from that world that you might not be aware of shows up in your life, and instead of becoming an authority figure or somebody who's checking in on your whereabouts at any given time,
mm.
becomes somebody you might be able to trust. So that could be really interesting.
It's very possible, since I'm in the wellness arena. It's very possible I go back into, this is what's been kind of like going through my mind around doing the contracting and the wellness for the Veterans Administration, and
There
just,
you go. That's seventh house.
yeah, the service to others is always, I know that's my path. It always has.
Yeah, and it's, again, you're dealing with Aries in the military. See how this works out. People say astrology is bullshit. It's not. I mean, we can see it right here in your chart.
Hmm.
I mean, this is what you're doing. So I'm betting that, since I'm looking really good in the Super Bowl, I'm betting that you're going to run across somebody who will turn the tables on you in a good way, and you'll be the recipient of some healing. So that's my denouement here.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's about time. It's like, you know how you kind of come into that point in your life where you're like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm over the worst. It's just like we're in the death cycle of winter right now. So we haven't yet come into spring. We're not going to be able to emerge until we've done that deep, like, contraction, go within and work on all that stuff. At least that's what I've been going through. And what I recognize is that it's like I've just been getting over these cycles of life, as I call it, where, I'm aware of all these different, like the mini deaths, the large deaths in my life, to where I'm like, okay, we're just getting our mojo back, we're reclaiming our power, and just bringing it back to what worked in the past and what is working in the now, and just integrating and all that to go forward.
Yeah, I think you're on it. I think you have a good understanding of your own personal cycles, and even the cycles of where we are in terms of our collective experience. So,
Thank
well,
you.
Lana, it's been great connecting with you.
Thank you. I love the past couple videos you've done. Thank you for turning me on to the recovering vegan, because that's a conversation I think everybody needs to be listening to.
Oh yeah, I saw your comments on that show. Yeah, you're welcome.
And also Shauna, how do you say her name?
Shona.
That was amazing too.
Yeah,
So
yeah. There's a lot of great women out there, man. A lot of really strong, turned on women. So that's always, to me, that's a great sign.
yeah,
And you seem like you're one of them too. So there you go.
thank you. We'll see you in the chat.
Okay, bye, Lana.
Bye.
All right. So that was Lana. Now we have Ilana, from Alana to Ilana. Is that right?
Well, it's Alona, or
Ilona.
in European language, it's Ilona, but it's
Ilona.
spelled with an I. So just think Alana, Alona.
Right. Okay. We were close, right?
Close.
Your
Yeah.
neighboring islands.
Yes.
How are you tonight?
Oh, great. I really, really enjoyed your interpretation of the evolution of romance and romantic relationships and how people relate, because I totally relate to what you're saying. And I'm also very thankful that you're being kind to Aquarians, because a lot of astrologers right now I'm feeling, are blaming Aquarians for the AI dystopia we're moving towards.
Well, it takes a a village of idiots to build an AI village, not just Aquarians. But no, I mean, clearly it's an Aquarian dystopic um, scenario, but you can't blame all Aquarians for it, right?
And like you said, there's the revolutionaries, and that's maybe
The
the camp I put
revolutionaries.
myself into. I'm
Yeah,
always anti-authoritarian. So whoever's trying to take control,
yeah,
they got to let loose of the power.
yeah. So I've had this daily stream, close to daily, Tuesday through Friday. So every day I pick somebody from that day and I kind of break down their chart a little bit. So I've been doing a lot of Aquarians, and I gotta say, man, they're really fascinating. Aquarians are really, really. It's like you'll get in the same sign, you get Angela Davis and Andrew Breitbart, right?
Yeah,
It's
I've been
just
watching those. Those are excellent. Yeah, because some are extremely right wing and some are extremely left
right,
wing. I'm a centrist, and
yeah,
I've got a stellium in Aquarius. All
right.
my inner planets are in
So,
Aquarius.
so your centrism is rebelling against the Aquarian extremism.
Yes, yes. Any fanaticism, can't stand it. Yeah, and
Right.
power to the people.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right. So do
Grassroots
you,
all
do
the
you want
way.
to do you want to play around here and put your chart up here?
Sure. Okay, so it's February 4th.
Hold on a second.
Toronto, Ontario, Canada, February 4th, 1962.
Feb 4,
Yeah, I was born
1962.
on the same day, I think, as Alice Cooper. If
Oh
that
yeah.
says anything.
Yeah. He's an interesting character. What time were you born?
11:03 a.m.
11:03 a.m. All right. In Toronto, right?
Yes, Toronto.
It's funny. We watched this documentary on Rick James last night.
Oh, yeah. He's fun.
And Rick James is an Aquarian too.
Oh, is he? He's funny.
Yeah. And of course he spent time in Toronto.
Yeah, he's from
Because
Newfoundland.
he grew up in Buffalo
Oh,
and
yeah.
and he dodged the draft.
Oh.
So that's how he wound up there. So what do you want to get into? Do you want to look at relationship? It's a bit of a theme, or do you want to do something else?
Well, just anything that stands out for you, but I do like I just met somebody and it just seems to hit when Pluto is getting close to my Saturn and Mars in the 10th house. And I'm just completing my Saturn return, which has been amazing. Yes, and it's all been related to teaching online, but I'm a social worker. That's my background as well as a journalist. And so radical, I guess. Very, very pro grassroots and
Oh,
empowerment.
I think aren't you born on the Antichrist birthday?
Oh, don't tell me that. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. I think this is the Antichrist day.
That's horrific. I'm so meek and mild. I've been shy most of my life.
It's
I
either
don't,
it's either the 4th or the 5th.
well,
One of
I
those
hope
2 days. Yeah. That's interesting. No, you've got this famous stellium in your chart
yeah,
from 1962. Yeah.
yeah.
So Pluto. Oh, so you just met somebody? Like how long ago?
Yes, like on my birthday
Oh, that's encouraging.
on February 4th, and then we got together on the Wednesday after the 4th, so that was the Saturday, so whatever was the Wednesday. And we
Mhm.
have everything in common. But what I found interesting is that you mentioned the person might have a
Yes.
military background, and he joined the military when he was 50, and spent 15 years training soldiers in Afghanistan. But he's a he's in theater, like he teaches theater, he's a director, he's an actor, which is the part that I find intriguing. That's because I don't like transactional relationships at all. They turn me right off. And so I
Right.
was really laughing when you were talking about how all that, Pluto and Capricorn was like that. And it was like I lost my husband and like around 10 years ago. And
Uh-huh.
that I didn't know anything about the dating scene, and people were calling me a dating dinosaur, and even like men in their 50s were acting like teenagers. So I just thought this is bizarre. I don't, and I'm totally independent. I don't need a relationship, never have. Had the love of my life for 25 years. We were best friends, soulmates, friends and lovers. I think that's the future because I think that for me personally was an ideal relationship. We
Right.
respected each other, we supported each other in being the best we could be. Anytime I had things that I was dealing with, I was supported by my partner and vice versa. Like we just supported each other to grow and to grow together. It was pretty
Right.
awesome. And I'm wondering if this relationship might be similar because of the similarity in the theater background. And we both love the theater and know everything about the theater. Well, not everything,
Interesting.
but
Well,
love
just
the theater.
fundamentally, what's his sun sign?
It's Cancer, which is really not anybody I've ever gone out with before. It's always Libras, and
Mhm.
I'm always drawn to Librans, I guess. So
Yeah.
and Sagittarians.
Does he have any planets in Leo by any chance?
I think there's one, but I think he has some in Gemini. I don't know his birth time because it's too early for me to ask him, but I know his birth
Right.
date. Do you want to pull up
Right.
his chart real quick?
When's his birth date?
It's June 25th, 1956.
Let's see.
So there's some Gemini in there. And I thought, oh, well, I always get along with Geminis. So maybe, I don't know if it was his moon in Gemini or no, his moon's in Aquarius, I think, which is the same as mine.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
All right.
And
so
I adore Cancers. It's just I've never had them in my life very much. Like maybe in high school, I had friends that were Cancers.
let's see. 1956.
And it's Toronto as well.
I'm just going to cruise by his solar chart, June 25th. So it looks like he's got moon in Capricorn.
Oh, it's Capricorn. Okay, I thought it came up as Aquarius.
Venus and Gemini.
Yes, Venus and Gemini. Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where the fun comes from.
Also Mercury in Gemini.
Yeah. Okay. So that's going to work for me too.
And Mars in Pisces.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of Pisces in my
And
family.
Jupiter in Leo.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's look at Pisces and Jupiter. Let's see, where are we?
But I knew something was going to happen, and then it was just bizarre that it's like a bolt of lightning. And he texts me all the time, and we're so like everything. We have everything in common. So it's bizarre. Like
let's
the same language.
yeah. So you need to be friends with the person
Yeah.
that you're involved with, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's just the nature of Venus in your chart
And
and
passionate.
Aquarius, right?
And passionate, though. I need both.
Well, that's where Mars comes into play. You know,
Right.
so
The Mars thing.
you yeah, friends and passion.
Yeah.
And his Jupiter's in your fourth house, and I think it's pretty close to your true node. So I think that's pretty good in terms of tapping in to passion, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, Gemini is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, and that gets on quite well with, your air planets. So it's stimulating, right? Aquarius is the higher octave of Gemini. So it's stimulating. I like this. I think Cancer is pretty soulful.
Yeah.
And
That's what I love. I love the arts, and he loves the arts, and we're both really passionate about our work. Like he's a
yeah,
teacher now, and he's also a director. I just went to see one of his plays,
oh,
and that's
great.
just what I love. Yeah. And I love my
Okay.
job. I'm teaching, and I love my students, and they're so enthusiastic. And I teach like students to be social workers and CYWs, which is child and
Right.
youth workers. So they're
Right.
passionate about their work. So yeah, we're kind of similar on that energy level.
That's
And we're
great.
yeah.
You
So I
know,
just
and you
want-
have
sorry, I was just wondering about that Uranus thing going on. Like, it's been squaring my stellium for the longest time. So I thought, is this just a bolt of lightning that's coming in my life and then it's going to bolt out? Or
I don't know. You never know, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the nature of things. But it definitely is something that will crack you open,
yeah.
and
Well, with
it'll.
Pluto coming through my stellium now, oh my gosh, what's going to happen?
I think it's exciting.
Yeah, I think it is too. I actually love my Saturn returns. A lot of people get scared of them. I've had the best things happen to me during my Saturn returns. Like
Yeah.
getting the greatest jobs and learning and growing. I just love that. So I loved my last Saturn return. Same thing. People through COVID, I had
Right.
a lot of friends, they were bored and they were locked down, and I started a new job and I loved it. So I was not bored at all through lockdowns and whatever
Right.
was going on with that stuff.
I
But
think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you have this Jupiter, over here and kind of out in front of your Aquarian gang. So it's always looking on the kind of the glass half full side of things,
yes,
right?
yes. the
Everything,
teachable
everything come. Yeah, absolutely. So you have that. And the square with Neptune is really interesting in your chart.
Yeah, I know.
Because you've probably gone through a lot of the kind of Neptunian drama, even the loss of your husband,
Yeah,
right? Would
yeah,
tie into that Neptune square and it kind of, drain the life force out of you a little bit.
absolutely.
Yeah. But now that the South Node has cleared your seventh house, I think you're open for business there, Alona.
Super. Oh, that's good news. Yeah.
Yeah.
That Neptune was a spirit. Like I've been into Buddhism, then I went back to Christianity, but it's, it's all part of that. I think it's squaring because I'm never quite convinced of any organized religion, but I love
Well,
spiritual
yeah.
people.
Yeah, Aquarians are iconoclasts, and just when you tell them, what the catechism is, even if they are into it, they'll flip the script and go, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's this other thing, and maybe I should check this other thing out for a while. Or like Rick James, there was such a crazy story about Rick James
Yeah.
in this documentary, and he was like pretty deep into his coke habit,
Wow.
and he was so pissed off that MTV wasn't playing his videos, and he just gotten off of this tour with Prince, and Prince rattled his cage, right? He really rattled Rick James's cage, so it sent Rick James into this sort of paroxysm of rage, and he wound up going into the offices of Motown, and he'd lost, I think, about $10 million or $15 million on his last tour. And he got into the offices of Motown and he started screaming at the president of Motown. And then he took out a chunk of coke and he cut up a big line and snorted it on his desk. And then he got up in his face and started cursing at him to, do whatever he needed to fucking do to make his tour successful. And he just blew up, right? He just went
Wow.
total negative Aquarius on the guy.
Oh my
Total
gosh.
negative Aquarius on him, just blew everything up. And then the guy looked at Berry Gordy's son, and he had one word for Berry Gordy's son. He said, Lionel Richie.
Oh,
and
wow.
at that point, they put all their resources into Lionel Richie to make him a big star. And it was that Aquarian supernova moment for
Yeah,
Rick
that's
James.
Mars. That I wonder where his Mars was because I have Saturn on top of my Mars, so it keeps me diplomatic.
Yeah, it regulates your Mars a little bit, right? No,
Yeah.
Rick's Mars is ironically it's in Virgo, and
Wow.
you would think that he would be a little more circumspect with his health, but I forget what it's doing. I think he has a Mars. Oh, I know what it is. He's got a Mars Pluto opposition.
Oh, yeah. So he needs to
Yeah.
transform.
So his Pluto is in Leo. So his Mars is his Mars in Aquarius? Anyway, he's got a Mars Pluto opposition. That's what I saw. So, well, Alana, what do you think? Are you good?
I'm good. Thank you. I just actually wanted to thank you. I really appreciate your work, and I've been listening to your podcast now for a couple of weeks, and I think I'll probably sign up for a session at some point soon.
Well, we're glad you're here. You can find us here every Sunday night. Of course, my Astro Weather, Tuesday through Thursday. And just keep being your Aquarian you.
Yeah, just waiting for that Pluto to come storming through for the next 20 years of my life. That's going to be it. That's going to be my life.
It's a great transit to go out on.
The ending, yeah.
Right?
Sure. I guess so. I like my Saturn, so I'm having my fingers crossed. I'm thinking positive.
We'll
All right,
think
have a good
positive with
night.
you.
Thank
All right,
you.
you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jeffrey Astrology Hood has been waiting for a long time.
What's up, Robert? Is my microphone good?
Loud and clear, brother. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I got to check in on the game now. Hold on.
I've been the people in my neighborhood. I can judge who's winning by who screams.
What did I say? What did I say? I said it's 38-35. I said they'd get it back within about 3 points for the spread. There it is.
Hey, I didn't have the money to bet on the Chiefs, but I was about to. But I'm kind of scared of betting. The last big bet I lost was the Cubs are on Cleveland in 2016. But I'd rather get into the relationship stuff because I hate sports, to be honest. It's such a waste of time. But
All right,
I know you're big into it.
What's going on with you with relationships?
I don't know. Well, I've been with my girlfriend for 5 years, but we've been in like a long distance relationship. So, I dropped my headphone. But so this is the first Valentine's Day where we're not gonna be together, and I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but she's born 10 days before me, so I guess I give you my time. and give you hers. Hopefully she's not mad at me for that, but she'll forgive me eventually.
All right,
But
hold on. Let me get in here.
tell me when you're ready.
All right, let's start with you.
All right, so January 22nd, 1998, 12:57 p.m. Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Holy Cross Hospital if it comes up like that. But the story is, I lived in New York for a few years, and 2 Decembers ago, I sold my.
I'm sorry. Where
condo.
were you born again? Where was it?
Oh, Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Fort Lauderdale. Right. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. I've never really looked at the synastry stuff. Like I understand my chart really well, but I'm not like advanced enough to like go into that stuff yet. So it'd be kind of interesting to learn about it.
Okay. And then,
oh, you ready for the next one?
yeah, give me 1 sec here.
No
Yeah.
rush.
Let's do this. I'm just putting her down as GF. All right. What's her date of birth?
January 12th, same year, 1998. And just put 9 a.m. It's pretty close.
And where was she born?
Bronx, New York.
Bronx, New York. We'll just go New York, New York. All right.
But I just want to say, while I got you, your daily stuff is incredible. It's
Oh, thanks,
really
man.
helped me. Yeah.
Thanks. I enjoy doing it. All right. Let's see what we have here.
And I did a reading with you back in November, and I really recommend everyone has to go book a reading immediately. I'm building up enough cash for another one, but probably within a few months, like maybe even this one will.
Well, after that testimonial, I think that earned you about half off.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but it's seriously.
Okay.
Go book one right now.
All right. Let's see what we got.
So I've been working on a bunch of stuff, and like I've been seeing Dr. Longo a lot, but I have like working with him a few days a week, and he's been calling me my assistant, but I don't know if I've been letting him down the past few days because I've been driving Uber, pretty Aquarian of me, like taking people around on their important trips from the airport. But I need to be focusing on the tasks he gives me, and I've been like dropping the ball, to do these mundane tasks like making outlines and stuff, but it's been good. Like he's really interesting. He's the best. Hopefully I don't like annoy him sometimes, but
anyway. I like Narco. He's great.
Yeah, you gotta come down to West Palm Beach, Robert, one time to his bookstore.
I'm telling you, man, it's in my plans. I want to do it. I want to hang out down there.
Yeah, you definitely should. I was in Las Vegas in 2021 this exact time this year with my girlfriend. And that was a good time. We spent like 7 days there. We got the Caesar's Palace and everything. It was beautiful. I know you said you were just there, but yeah, it's a crazy place there. But anyway,
yeah,
I'm just trying to fill the gap between we get to till we get to it.
We're here now.
We're live.
Okay, dude, I like this. This is good synergy.
I hope so.
her Venus is conjunct your sun, right? I mean, that's considered pretty auspicious in terms of astrology, right? You have all these connections. I mean, it's because you're born 12 days apart that a lot of this stuff is going to line up, right? Pluto.
Yeah,
so
just 10 days.
Let's look at the moons. I mean, you've got that intense moon in Scorpio, and she has a moon in Cancer, which is great. I mean, the moon is the modulator of the emotional experience. And so you guys modulate with water, right? I mean, that's how that's your harmonic together. So I really like that. And then you have this, well, she was born on a full moon. She's got that sun moon opposition. So she's born on a full moon. Your moon's a little bit different. Your moon is, what is it? Waxing gibbous. So
I have no idea, but something like that.
Waxing gibbous. No, I mean, this is a good chart. I mean, you guys are, nicely lined up. Her moon is in your third house, which communication is really important.
Yeah, which I've
and
been failing at the past few weeks, which is I understand all these things, but sometimes I kind of push it.
how
But
far away does she live from you?
well, right now she's in the Bronx and I'm in Florida. I mean, she was here for like from August till election day of
Right.
last year. And I went to go see her for all of Thanksgiving and I went to see her for her birthday. And then I haven't seen her since then. But it's more of like she's got medical stuff and her mom, it's like such a small apartment in the Bronx because she's like got the 12th house stuff.
Right.
But so yeah, like but ever since like her mom, like the remote, she's had a remote job for like 10 years, but now there's cameras watching her, so now it's like it's hard to be up in New York there because like I don't want to risk her mother's job getting fired. So but
Yeah,
it's
that's
a bunch of little details, but I'd rather get into like the astrology of stuff. Like right now I know the moon is transiting my Scorpio Chiron right now.
That's right. Yeah. The other thing too, she has this Jupiter on her ascendant, right?
Yeah, and Mars too.
Right. Jupiter a little more than Mars. Mars kind of ingressing from the 12th, but this is a person that needs some freedom, right, and expansion. And I don't know. It's an interesting dichotomy with that Cancer moon, because they don't. I don't know if it's in a Yod territory, but she definitely needs to have.
It's a little bit of both at the same time, yeah.
She's some liberty of movement, but at the same time, you're not going to be able to tell her really what to do, right?
Yeah.
Not with Mars and her ascendant. So, I don't know if you just allow sort of the winds of change to kind of sort things out so that you can, either she can come to Florida. Sounds like you're pretty rooted there, right?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I was up in New York, so like it was kind of unfair of me to like, sell my condo. I mean, we went to college together. We met on February 16th, so we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary in 2018. So
she's got Pluto. She's got Pluto on her Venus too.
Yeah,
right? That's a big transit, man. That is a really, really big transit. And I noticed that you have Pluto in the 7th, and her Pluto is conjunct your Pluto. And I think Pluto in the 7th house is pretty tricky, because a lot of times with Pluto in the 7th house, you can feel like a relationship is about to end and it doesn't. And it goes,
yeah, that's been like all the time, but it's because like we're somehow like soulmates, and even if we want to end it, it won't.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with Pluto, man. It's just like, oh man, this thing is over, right? It's over, and then the next thing you know, the breath of life comes back into the relationship.
Yeah, wake up the next morning. Yeah,
yeah, here we are again, right? But Pluto conjunct Venus in her chart, dude, that's pretty significant. It's already coming off of your Venus, right? Because you have Venus at 22, and her Venus is at 28. So you've already gone through this. She's going to Pluto come back and hit her Venus again, and her Venus is retrograde. So is yours. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the next retrograde Pluto, right? That's going to come back, goes to 27, and it's going to come back again. And I'm wondering if during that next retrograde, and when it goes direct, which it will in December of this year, whether that will make this final fundamental mark and change in her relationship with her 12th house. It's an interesting transit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I would say that she's going through some really, and she's going to Pluto in her 12th house for a while, years, right? Like, yeah. So, those Pluto 12th house transits, I mean, they will really forge an individual at a very deep level. I like it better in Aquarius than, say, its predecessor in Capricorn. I saw a lot of lives get burned down with Pluto going through the 12th house in Capricorn, especially if there were planets there and like heavy. With Aquarius, I think it's different, right? Because
Hopefully,
with
we'll find
well,
out.
I think it's different because of the social nodes.
You've only been right 99 out of 100 times, Robert. So
Well, I just think it's different, right? Like, so for the people that I knew that had Pluto going through their 12th house in Capricorn, a lot of it had to do with like the death of their career, the death of their fathers, sort of the death of a passing of a certain time, all those Capricorn related things. And so it felt really personal. Whereas I think Aquarius is very transpersonal. So who knows? Maybe you and her and Narco and his
they
lady.
haven't met yet. So
they haven't. Well,
No. Hopefully soon.
maybe you'll all start the brand new Garden of Eden down there in Florida.
Hey, that's what I'm hoping. Like we get like a bunch of land or something like that. Plant a bunch of
to me, that's like a Pluto transit in the 12th house, right? Turning away from the culture, turning away from the paradigm.
Yeah.
So I mean, you guys are gonna have a really great. You have an interesting, great run here with Pluto hitting your Neptunes and Pluto hitting your Uranuses. This is a very interesting, exciting, and dynamic time for Gen Z, man. I mean, come on, Pluto sextile Pluto. This is big shit. So I think you're going to be fine. She's got this Pluto conjunction with Venus to work out in that one last transit in December, and then it goes direct. And then I think that there's a fundamental shift and change, it has nothing to do with you though. Like you can't do anything about it, right?
Yeah, I kind of realized that, but I'm just like kind of getting through the days. Like, I almost like rarely work. Like, just drive Uber. Like maybe like I'm talking maybe 8 weeks a year just to get by. And I've done it like 3 weeks straight, kind of because I knew like her ascendant was going through Aquarius, and that's like relationship. You rethink your relationship, kind of.
Right. And Saturn, right? She has Saturn there.
Yeah. So I've kind of been like distant on purpose, even though she needs communication. But I don't know. I hate playing games, but
but these are things that are beyond your control, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been like from the third person point of view. I mean, she is too, or else I wouldn't be with her. So it's kind of like, two people in the same room. Like if we've been like 7 days straight living together, we might snap on each other because we both have that Mars Jupiter conjunction. But it's always all right the next day.
That's your Pluto. That's your lovely friend Pluto in the 7th house.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, Jeff, what do you think? Are you good?
Oh yeah, I'm good. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I could talk for hours with you, Robert.
Hey, I'm glad you've been showing up. I've really been appreciating your energy, and hopefully one of these days I can get down there to Florida and meet you guys.
Yeah, let's create some value together, Robert. Let's build something great.
I'd love that, man. Awesome.
All right.
Awesome
Take care,
stuff.
Robert.
You too.
Love what you're doing. Yeah. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. All right. We have one more patiently waiting person. And that's Lisa. Hi, Lisa. You're our finale. Our grand fiend. Yes. How are you? You got to turn your mic up a little bit though.
Okay.
Does that work? Yeah. So how's your evening? How's your evening going?
It's very relaxing. Anti-Super Bowl.
Anti-Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I was right. I just got to tell everybody, I was right about the Super Bowl. I totally called it. I said Philadelphia was going to go out in front in the first half. Kansas City was going to go ahead, and it would close with about a 2.5 to 3 point spread. And that's exactly where I should have bet on that. Anyway.
It's awesome.
So are you here to talk a little bit about relationships?
Sure. I'm down for whatever. It's about to be my birthday, so I'm just hoping you can look at my chart and give me some insight. Any input is appreciated greatly.
Well, you keep talking with that Southern accent.
I shall.
We'll be on here for a while.
I shall. Live in Boulder, Colorado, so I'd like to expose them to Southern culture.
All right. When's your birthday?
2/1963.
Okay. And what time were you born?
7 p.m. Houston, Texas, or thereabouts.
They got nap. He's got nap on this stuff.
All right.
I'm gonna mic this on.
Who is that?
That's my baby child. He's 36.
Hey, Robert.
How's it going?
We're avid listeners.
It's going good, man.
Good.
Mm.
All right. Where do you want to go, Lisa? You want to talk about relationship, or what do you want to do?
At this point, anything is good. We
I
can
know.
talk about relationship or lack thereof. I don't have a relationship. I haven't been in one for a long time, sort of by
Well,
choice.
Since it's the theme of the night, do you want to be in a relationship?
Sure. My granny said my picker's bad. Those are her terms. That's
Your
what she
picker,
said.
your granny said your picker is bad.
Yes, she said I pick shitty men. In other words.
Does that have to do with Pisces on the 7th house cusp?
I would imagine, yeah. It's not my doing per se.
And you have Chiron there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of the bleeding heart, right?
Yeah.
Chiron in the South Node is the bleeding heart. And you're a romantic. Jupiter in the 7th house in Pisces is a romantic, and
Very.
and you've got Sun in Pisces, Jupiter trine Neptune. So Saturn's coming to town,
Yes.
right? Saturn's going to hit your Sun
I don't know whether to be excited or very afraid.
March 5th. No, March 8th. March 8th is when Saturn comes to town. I think Saturn transits of the sun are good. I mean, you get to cycle out of the last 30 years of your life, right? So everything that you did, starting in 1993 comes to a close.
Oh,
You're
hallelujah.
Closing chapter. Saturn is the chronometer of the chart. So now you get to start something new,
Okay.
right? Start something new. Then you're going to have Saturn conjuncting Chiron. That won't be till next year.
Yeah.
By the way, yeah. So that's going to be a big transit. Also, at that time, Saturn's going to oppose Pluto in your chart. I would say, if I was your granny, I'd say get out that bad picker again. That's what I would say. Although in this case, I think it would be a good picker. Because we started off the show tonight when I was talking about Saturn going through the 7th house, right? I was talking to first person on the show. We were talking about the nature of Saturn there. And so here we go. We're closing the show with another Saturn transit. That won't be till next year, but those are pretty significant. And you have Saturn conjuncting Jupiter in 2024. I like Saturn Jupiter conjunctions. I like Jupiter Saturn conjunctions. They're a little bit different, right? It's sort of like when Jupiter hits Saturn. Actually, it's the other way around. When Saturn hits Jupiter, it's when preparation meets opportunity, right? So we would like to think that you've had some preparation and laid some groundwork for Saturn in your 7th house. So that would mean that you would be theoretically ready, right? Whatever Saturn has brought you with the conjunction of the sun and closing chapters and looking ahead, and really in a lot of ways looking forward, because Saturn is ascending in your chart, right? It's moving upwards. So there's a whole different kind of cosmology and momentum around the descent of Saturn and the ascent of Saturn. So you're in the ascent phase and have been for a while. And that Saturn Chiron conjunction really heals a lot from whatever vestiges and remnants that you've had from your childhood. You've already gone through your Chiron return. So, the Saturn conjunction also to me is indicative of, you not being a doormat and taking a risk at the same time, right? Like, okay, I'm going to open myself up, but it's going to be limited. And I'm not going to be open for business for everybody, right? So that's how I see that Saturn Chiron conjunction, because it's setting the stage. And when you kind of prepare the elements in your life, right, to get to this point where it locks in with Jupiter in 2024, things feel like they're sort of timed and destined in a lot of ways. But you've got a little bit of ground to cover in the closing of those chapters. And of course, Saturn goes retrograde and it goes right back to zero again. I think it is in December. So you get 2 hits of Saturn on your sun. The first one in March 8th, and then the other one is in December. So you get a little bit of forward momentum, but then it falls back again. And then there's some refining and refinishing. So the question that I would, ask you, and I know it's a kind of a big philosophical rhetorical question, but let's just slice it in half. Not, let's say, the next 28 years, but what do you want to do for the next 14 years, right? Or even the next 7 years. Let's do the next 7 years. That'd be the question I'd ask you. What would you like to have happen in the next 7 years? Because that's where Saturn will lead you, right? Because you're on the clock. When Saturn hits your descendant, right, it's literally a 7-year period or a 7-year cycle to get to your midheaven. And we're not really that far away. We're 3 Saturn transits away from Saturn being in Gemini. So to me, that means that you've got some tread on your tire and you've got some changes to go through. But they're good changes. And I don't think you're going to go through the changes alone. That's my sense. And you may be fine. I'm cool. I don't have to be with anybody. But I think the universe might have different plans for you. Are you there? Where did she go? Oh. Did I lose her? I think I lost her. Where did you go? Oh, did you get out? What happened to you? Where did you go?
I don't know. I just flew off the handle. It happens sometimes.
Did you hear what I said?
I did. I heard the very last part that 7-year cycle in half, cut 2 of them in half, each 7. Correct?
So it's like, I said you've got some runway ahead of you, and I don't think it's by yourself. I don't think it's alone. And I said I know that you have some you may be okay with flying solo, but I don't see that.
Okay. Well, that's good news. That'll be a helpful change. I'm just having a lot of problems with my family right now too. So I was wondering if that was something if it was a flipping of the tail of the dragon, or what's happening.
So I was just looking at your 7th house. Sometimes that stuff can be legal, but I didn't want to go there, right?
Yes, legal.
Yeah.
My mom just died. And my siblings are the word,
Well, so you've got Jupiter go through your 8th house, which is legacies, right? And if it's a legacy issue and you have Jupiter and Aries in the 8th house, you can't play backup. You can't play center field.
Yeah.
Right? Aries basically says you've got to take charge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you have some degree. I hate to use this word in this context. You have some degree of passivity in your chart with Pisces, right?
Sure.
But in this instance with Jupiter in the 8th house, Aries is not passive.
No.
So I would say, take the ram by the horns.
Okay.
Yeah. And you've got Jupiter trining Mars. So your ability to be confident and take a leadership role is kind of incumbent, and you'll be able to do it better and easier. And you have this yod with Mars in your chart. So and Chiron is part of the yod, right?
Okay.
So when Saturn's on Chiron and it's in the position of the yod, that's interesting. That's where you have to stand up for things, even if they're uncomfortable. It forces you.
I get that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have a lot of fire in your chart. You have that Mars and Leo, and that's it. So Jupiter coming in and igniting and sparking Mars in your chart could be really, really good for you.
Yeah, I
Really
feel
good.
very contrarian, Robert. I feel like I have a lot of, like, I feel very Pisces, but I also feel very Aquarian, or I don't know what that thing is, what
Well,
that.
you have Mercury in Aquarius, you have Saturn in Aquarius. So you have kind of, the cusp of both worlds here,
Mhm.
right? Um, yeah, and Pluto's on your south node too. And that has a lot to do with legacies, and that's an interesting transit with Pluto. Very so it's your past. There's a lot of
Mhm.
finishing up with when you have a Pluto south node transit.
Oh,
It's gonna go back again one more time. Then it's into Aquarius. That's gonna be the final transit ingress of Pluto into Aquarius. I think will be good for you.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
But
hallelujah. I just want some relief. I feel like such a paradox because my Cappy moon and my Virgo ascendant and then my Pisces and Aquarius placements, I kind of feel like people look at me and go like, how is she doing that? What is she doing that? Like, what are her reasons? I mean, it's so wacky, sort of.
well,
Is
your
that
Pisces, your Pisces would probably be attuned to that and sensitive to it.
mm,
Your Aquarius shouldn't give a fuck, right?
doesn't?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then your Capricorn can come in and scold them, right? So it's like you have three modalities of being: the vulnerable part, the don't give a fuck, and scolding. So,
Yes.
and I think ultimately Mars mediates all of them. And when you have Jupiter coming in here, so I would say if you're having some challenges with, your family,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got Jupiter going through your eighth house and dealing with things like wills, legacies, and then it comes in and it trines your Mars. That's an ignition. It's an ignition moment. So at the very least, you'll have something to get fired up about.
Okay, awesome. What can I do for the projection? I feel like people project on me a lot. Like I'm not even there where they think I am. But I can be ahead of people, sort of. And I think that's sort of what makes them hostile, but I kind of don't know what to do about it. And like you said, I fluctuate between the lecture, the I don't give a fuck, and that
Yeah.
thing.
Just wait till Saturn hits your sun. It'll reformat
And
your
when
pro
is
March 8th is when Saturn hits your sun. It begins a year-long process of reformatting who
okay.
you are, what you've been over the last 30 years.
Well, that sounds amazing.
Well, I like it. I think it's a good place for Saturn to be. So
Yeah.
everything is pretty much rising in your chart, right? Pluto's rising, Saturn's rising, Neptune's rising, Jupiter's rising, and even Uranus. So all the major planets are on the west side of the MC. So they're all moving up towards the midheaven. So that's good. You've got all the outer planets kind of bringing their momentum upwards. And of course, Pluto probably won't get past deep Pisces in your chart, but nonetheless, it's all about momentum, and life is a momentum game.
Mm-hmm.
So, all
Well,
right, Lisa, are you
well, I
good?
appreciate it so much. Yes, Chris has been taking notes this whole time because I knew that I would be nervous being on with you. We're avid followers of you. We think you are substantial and miraculous in every way. I love your
Thanks.
connection. I love your connection pieces, especially with people and concepts. I think they add so much to the astrology. And thank you so much for doing this and having this open line tonight. I really appreciate it because I know you're a football fan, even though you're trying to reform yourself.
I appreciate that.
Yes,
All right.
sir.
All right.
Thanks.
You guys take care, okay?
Thank you so much, Robert. We appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. This has been a great night. Man, way more successful than I thought it would be. And we talked a lot about relationship, but we also touch about a lot of other things with astrology as well. So great. We'll do it again. Maybe we'll do one of these once a month or something like that. We'll open up the lines and you guys can come in and we'll bullshit and we'll look at some charts and we'll have some fun. It's been great fun for me. All right. I'm out of here. Thanks for being here. If you're interested, I didn't get into my sponsor tonight, truehempscience.com/ref/23. I'm about to pop one of their gummies so I can just cruise right into sleep tonight. And I'll leave all the information if you want to get some of the best CBD products that you can find on the internet or in person for that matter. And if you're interested in booking a reading, I'll have the information in the show page. And I think that's about it. All right. Thanks for being here. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Take care. Bye for now. We'll see you Tuesday on 15 Minutes of Flame. Ciao.